Your dream cruise could become your worst nightmare in seconds. Thousands of vacationers lose millions every year to sophisticated scams happening right under cruise line noses. And today, you'll discover exactly how they operate. I'm exposing 10 devastating cruise ship cons that destroyed people's vacations and bank accounts. Names and details have been changed for privacy, but every single incident actually happened to real victims. Drop your location and current time in the comments below. And subscribe to Mr. Nightveil for more shocking true stories that could save you from becoming the next victim. My name is Maria. I'm 34 years old, and I work as a marketing manager in Vancouver. What I'm about to tell you happened in March 2024 on a Royal Caribbean cruise that started as a dream and ended as a nightmare I still can't shake off. That vacation became the most expensive lesson of my life. And by the time you hear what happened, you'll understand why I can never look at a cruise port the same way again. I had been planning this Caribbean cruise for 8 months. The Harmony of the Seas was massive, one of the biggest ships in the world, and I'd scraped together every penny to afford it. After years of working 60-hour weeks, answering client emails at 2 in the morning, and sacrificing countless weekends for presentations that never seemed to end, I was burned out. My doctor had actually suggested I take time off before I collapsed. This cruise was supposed to fix everything. 7 days of pure freedom, floating through turquoise waters with zero responsibilities. I'd even done the unthinkable and left my laptop at home, something I hadn't managed to do since my college graduation trip. The first 2 days were everything I'd imagined and more. I spent mornings by the pool with a book I'd been trying to finish for 6 months, afternoons wandering through the ship's different neighborhoods, and evenings watching Broadway caliber shows that left me speechless. I made friends with a couple from Toronto at the dinner table, tried foods with names I couldn't pronounce, and finally felt the knots in my shoulders starting to loosen. For the first time in years, I wasn't checking my phone every 5 minutes. I was actually living in the moment. But on day 3, when we docked in Cozumel, Mexico, everything changed in ways I never saw coming. I'd been researching shore excursions for weeks before the trip. The ATV jungle tour kept popping up in all the reviews. People raved about racing through jungle paths, swimming in hidden cenotes, and experiencing the real Mexico beyond the tourist traps. The cruise line's version cost $320 for 4 hours, which seemed steep, but I figured it was worth it for the safety and reliability. At least, that's what I thought until that morning. I woke up early, excited for the day ahead, and decided to check my expenses on the cruise app. My stomach sank. Between the specialty, restaurants, the drinks, the spa treatment I'd splurged on, and the photos I'd bought, I'd already blown through way more of my budget than planned. And we still had 4 full days left. The $320 excursion suddenly felt impossible to justify. Maybe I could find something cheaper at the port. I'd read warnings about booking excursions with random vendors on the street, but surely there were legitimate local companies offering the same tours for less, right? The cruise lines had to mark things up. That's just business. The moment I stepped off the ship onto the Cozumel pier, the Caribbean heat slammed into me like opening an oven door. It was only 9 in the morning, but the sun was already merciless. The pier was chaos. Vendors lined both sides of the walkway, calling out to passengers in a mix of English and Spanish, waving colorful brochures, holding up signs for taxi services and beach clubs. The air smelled like sunscreen, salt water, and grilled meat from somewhere nearby. Most cruise passengers walked straight past the vendors with their heads down, heading toward the official excursion meeting points or the taxi stand. But I slowed down, curious about what deals might be available. That's when he found me. He appeared beside me so smoothly, I almost didn't notice. A man in his early 30s with dark hair, styled with just enough gel to look professional, wearing a crisp turquoise polo shirt that looked freshly ironed. What caught my attention immediately was the laminated badge hanging from a lanyard around his neck. It looked official, with a holographic seal that caught the sunlight and read, "Cozumel Tourism Board, Authorized Excursion Partner," in both English and Spanish. Below that was a photo ID, a barcode, and an expiration date. It looked more legitimate than my own work ID back home. "First time in Cozumel?" he asked, his smile revealing perfectly white teeth. His English was flawless, with just a slight accent that somehow made him sound more trustworthy, like someone who was truly local but educated and professional. I nodded, still looking at that badge. It had to be real. The hologram moved when he shifted, just like official IDs do. "You picked the perfect day," he continued, gesturing toward the cloudless sky. "Weather's ideal for ATVs. Strong sun, but not too hot yet, and the cenotes will be crystal clear. You booked your jungle tour already?" I hesitated, then admitted I was still deciding. The cruise line's price was making me reconsider. His eyes lit up with what looked like genuine sympathy, and he shook his head slowly. "I completely understand your frustration. You know what the sad truth is? The cruise companies. They mark everything up 3, sometimes 4 times the actual local cost. They take advantage of tourists who don't know any better. And honestly, it breaks my heart because people miss out on amazing experiences just because of price." He pulled a glossy brochure from a leather shoulder bag that looked professional and well-maintained. The brochure was impressive. Full color with professional photography showing tourists on ATVs kicking up jungle dust, groups swimming in stunning cenotes with sun rays piercing through the water, and action shots of people racing through narrow trails with huge smiles. There were even 5-star reviews printed on the back with full names and dates. "We're an authorized partner with the cruise lines. Same exact tour, same professional bilingual guides, same top-of-the-line equipment. We even use the same cenotes. But because we're locally owned and operated, and we don't pay the cruise line's massive commission fees, we can offer the 4-hour premium tour for $180. That's a savings of $140 for literally the identical experience." The math was tempting. $140 could cover another spa treatment, souvenirs for my entire team back home, or just stay in my bank account where it belonged. But something in the back of my mind whispered caution. I'd read those warnings about booking at ports. "How do I know this is legitimate?" I asked, trying to sound confident but probably just sounding nervous. He didn't seem offended at all. In fact, his smile grew even warmer, like he'd been expecting the question and respected me for asking it. "That's a very smart question, and I'm glad you asked. Look, I wouldn't trust a random person on the street either." He pulled out a business card from his shirt pocket, the kind with raised lettering that feels expensive when you touch it. "Here's our company information with our office address right here in Cozumel. We're fully licensed by the Mexican Ministry of Tourism. And here, let me show you something." He pulled out his phone, and within seconds had pulled up what looked like a TripAdvisor page. The company had hundreds of reviews, almost all 5 stars, with recent photos from tourists on ATVs time-stamped within the last few weeks. He scrolled slowly so I could read several reviews. They all praised the professionalism, the equipment quality, the friendly guides, and specifically mentioned booking at the pier and having an amazing experience. "See? We've been operating for 6 years. These are real people, real reviews. You can even look us up yourself right now if you want." He said it so casually, with such confidence, that I felt my doubts melting away. I looked at that badge again. The hologram, the barcode, the official lettering. I looked at the business card with its raised print and professional design. I looked at his polo shirt with an embroidered logo that matched the brochure. Everything looked legitimate. This wasn't some random guy in a tank top and sandals trying to hustle tourists. This was a professional representative from an authorized company. And I really wanted to save that $140. "Okay," I heard myself say. "I'll book it." His smile could have lit up the entire pier. "Excellent choice. You're going to have an incredible time, I promise you. The tour departs at 11 o'clock, which gives you plenty of time. Here's what you'll do." He pulled out a small map of the port area and circled a location about 6 blocks away. "Head to this address. It's a 10-minute walk, very easy, straight down this main road. You'll see a white van with our company logo on the side. The driver's name is Carlos. Great guy. Been with us for 4 years. Just show him this receipt, and he'll have your name on the list." I pulled out $180 in cash from my purse. He took it, counted it quickly with the practiced efficiency of someone who handles money professionally, and then wrote out a receipt on a carbon copy receipt pad. The paper was thin, the kind you get at small businesses, and he filled it out by hand with details about the tour, the time, the meeting location. He signed it with a flourish at the bottom, tore off the top copy, and handed it to me along with the business card and brochure. "Keep this receipt safe. That's your ticket to paradise," he said, shaking my hand firmly. "Carlos will take great care of you. Best excursion in Cozumel, guaranteed. You made a smart choice today." I walked away from that interaction feeling genuinely proud of myself. While other cruise passengers were overpaying the cruise line, I'd been savvy enough to find the local option and save $140. That was smart travel. That was how experienced travelers operated. I spent the next hour browsing souvenir shops, grabbing a coffee and churro from a vendor, and watching other tourists navigate the chaotic port area. At 10:45, I pulled out the map and started walking toward the address he'd marked. The walk took me away from the main tourist area. The streets got quieter, the shops more sparse. After about 8 minutes, I arrived at the location he'd circled. It was an empty parking lot behind a restaurant that looked permanently closed. Weeds grew through cracks in the asphalt. There were no white vans, no company logos, no other tourists waiting. Just empty space baking under the merciless Mexican sun. I checked the map again, certain I'd made a mistake. But no, this was definitely the address. Maybe I was early. I decided to wait. 11 o'clock came. No van, no Carlos, no other tourists. By 11:15, my chest started to tighten. I pulled out the business card with slightly shaking hands and dialed the number. It rang twice, then went to a generic voicemail in Spanish. I hung up and called again. Same thing. I called a third time. Same voicemail. On the fourth call, the number went straight to a disconnected message. My throat went dry. My hands started trembling. I looked down at the receipt he'd given me, and for the first time, I really looked at it. The paper felt cheap, the kind you buy in bulk at office supply stores. There was no company logo printed on it, no official watermark. Just his handwritten scribbles and a signature I couldn't even read. The business card that had felt so substantial before suddenly felt like cheap cardstock with basic printing. The realization crashed over me like ice water. I'd been scammed. Completely, thoroughly scammed. My heart started pounding so hard, I could hear it in my ears. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I felt my breath coming faster, shorter, like I couldn't get enough air. The heat that had felt merely uncomfortable before now felt suffocating. Sweat ran down my back, and I couldn't tell if it was from the temperature or the pure panic flooding my system. $180. Gone. Just gone. To a man whose real name I didn't know. Who'd had a fake badge and a fake business card and a smile that had seemed so genuine. I ran. My sandals weren't made for running, and they slapped against the pavement awkwardly as I sprinted back toward the port area, my purse bouncing against my hip. I stopped random locals on the street, showing them the business card, asking if they knew the company. Most shook their heads. One older woman looked at the card and then at me with such sad, pitying eyes that I wanted to cry. "Pasa todo el tiempo," she said softly. "Happens all the time." I found a small police station 2 blocks from the pier. The officer behind the desk looked tired and unsurprised as I explained what happened, my words tumbling out in a panicked rush. He took my information, wrote up a report, and gave me a copy with an apologetic expression. "We receive many reports like this every week, señorita. The men who do this, they work the cruise terminal when ships arrive, and then they disappear into the city. Without his real name, without photographs, without witnesses, there is nothing we can investigate. I am very sorry for what happened to you." The entire process took an hour. When I left the police station with my useless report, I checked my phone. It was 1:15. The ship was scheduled to depart at 1:30. I had 15 minutes to get back. I ran again, harder this time, pushing through the crowded streets, dodging tourists and vendors, my lungs burning, my legs aching. The pier came into view, and the harmony of the seas towered above everything. Impossible to miss. But the gangway was gone. I watched, frozen in place, as the ship's horn sounded and the massive vessel began to pull away from the dock. Slowly, inevitably, the ship that held my cabin, my clothes, my passport, my medication, everything I'd brought with me, was moving away. I stood there unable to move, unable to think, unable to do anything but watch my vacation sail away without me. A port agent noticed me standing there and rushed over. "Were you on that ship?" I nodded. I couldn't speak. My voice was gone. "You need to contact Royal Caribbean immediately. They'll arrange how you can meet the ship at the next port. But you need to call right now." The next port was Grand Cayman, 300 miles away. I called the cruise line's emergency number with shaking hands and was put on hold for 20 minutes while tinny elevator music played in my ear. When a representative finally answered, her voice was professional but firm as she explained my options. I could fly to Grand Cayman that evening and rejoin the ship, or I could wait and meet it in Jamaica in 2 days. Either way, I was responsible for all transportation costs, accommodation, and any expenses incurred. This was clearly stated in the cruise contract. Missing the ship was my responsibility. The only flight to Grand Cayman that evening cost $890. I had to book it right there, standing on the pier with other passengers and port workers walking past me. The hotel near the Grand Cayman airport was another $80. I was now out $1,150, had lost an entire day of my vacation, and felt like the stupidest person who had ever lived. When I finally rejoined the ship in Grand Cayman the next morning, exhausted from the overnight travel and running on maybe 2 hours of sleep in an airport hotel, I could feel the stares. Word had spread. Everyone knew about the woman who'd fallen for a port scam and missed the ship. My Toronto friends tried to be sympathetic when they saw me at lunch, but I could see the judgment behind their kind words. How could anyone be that naive? I spent the remaining 4 days of the cruise mostly in my cabin. I couldn't face the other passengers. Every time I walked through the ship, I felt like everyone was looking at me, whispering about the idiot who'd trusted a scammer with a fake badge. The vacation I'd planned for 8 months, the escape I desperately needed, the break my doctor had prescribed, was completely ruined. And it was entirely my fault. That 5-minute conversation at the pier cost me $1,070 and destroyed what should have been the trip of a lifetime. But the money wasn't even the worst part. It was the humiliation, the shame, the constant replay in my head of every moment, every red flag I'd ignored, every warning sign I'd dismissed because I wanted to save $140. I'm back in Vancouver now, back at my desk, back to the 60-hour weeks and midnight emails. The stress that had started to melt away on those first 2 perfect cruise days is back with a vengeance. I have trouble sleeping because I keep reliving that moment when I handed over the cash, that moment when I realized the van wasn't coming, that moment when I watched my ship sail away. I'll never trust another authorized vendor at a cruise port. I'll never try to save money on excursions. I'll never believe another professional-looking badge or glossy brochure. But those lessons came far too late and cost far too much. Every time someone at work mentions planning a cruise, I feel my stomach turn. And when they ask if I have any tips from my recent trip, I don't know what to say. How do you explain that your dream vacation became your worst nightmare because you trusted the wrong smile? My name is Devin. I'm 62 years old, and I spent 37 years teaching high school history in Ohio. My wife Jamie is 59 and taught elementary school for 33 years. We'd been planning our Alaska cruise for 3 years, ever since we both retired. The Celebrity Eclipse 7-day Inside Passage journey in July 2023 was supposed to be our celebration, our reward for decades of shaping young minds on modest salaries. Instead, it became the moment we learned that being educated doesn't protect you from being manipulated. We lost $8,350 in a single afternoon, and the worst part is, we walked into it willingly, with our eyes wide open. Or so we thought. Jamie and I had always been careful with money. We had to be. Teacher salaries in rural Ohio don't leave much room for luxuries. We raised 3 kids on those salaries, put them all through college, and still managed to save for retirement. We weren't wealthy, but we were comfortable. And this Alaska cruise represented something we'd dreamed about for years. The glaciers, the wildlife, the rugged beauty of America's last frontier. We'd watched documentaries, read books, planned every detail. The first 3 days of the cruise were breathtaking. We saw humpback whales breaching near the ship, watched bald eagles soaring over evergreen forests, and stood on deck with blankets wrapped around us as we sailed past massive glaciers calving into the sea. Jamie cried when we saw our first grizzly bear on the shoreline. After decades of teaching about geography and nature, actually witnessing these things felt surreal. Day 4 was a sea day, meaning the ship sailed between ports with no stops. The weather was overcast and cool, typical for Alaska even in July, so most passengers stayed indoors exploring the ship's amenities. That morning, we noticed elegant signs posted throughout the ship advertising a champagne art auction in the main gallery at 2 o'clock. The signs promised museum-quality works, investment opportunities, and authenticated pieces from renowned artists. Jamie had always loved art. Our modest home in Ohio was filled with prints and small paintings she'd collected over the years, nothing expensive, but each piece chosen with care and displayed with pride. She taught her second graders basic art appreciation, often bringing in prints of famous works to discuss colors, emotions, and storytelling through images. The idea of attending a real art auction, even on a cruise ship, excited her. "Should we go?" she asked that morning at breakfast, her eyes bright with interest. "Just to look? It might be fun." I saw no harm in it. We weren't going to buy anything, obviously. Our budget was planned down to the last dollar. But looking was free, and it would be an interesting experience. Something different from shuffleboard and trivia contests. We arrived at the gallery at 1:55. The space had been transformed. Soft, classical music played from hidden speakers. Dozens of framed artworks lined the walls, properly lit with gallery-style lighting. Tables draped in white linen held champagne flutes and fancy appetizers. The atmosphere felt sophisticated, cultured, expensive. Other passengers were already there, dressed nicely, speaking in hushed tones as they examined the pieces. A woman in her 40s wearing a sharp black suit and striking red lipstick welcomed us at the entrance. Her name tag read, "Gallery Director, Prestige Art International." Her smile was warm but professional. "Welcome. First time at one of our auctions?" When we nodded, her smile widened. "How wonderful. Please help yourselves to champagne and appetizers. The auction begins in just a few minutes, but feel free to preview the collection. Every piece comes with full authentication and provenance documentation." The champagne was good, better than anything we usually drank. The appetizers were tiny but delicious. Little puff pastries and chocolate-covered strawberries. Jamie squeezed my hand as we walked along the wall, admiring landscapes, abstracts, and prints from artists whose names I recognized from textbooks. Then we saw it. A framed lithograph print, maybe 20 inches by 16, showing a simple line drawing in Picasso's distinctive style. The placard beside it read, "Pablo Picasso, La Colombe, The Dove, 1949. Limited edition lithograph, numbered 47200, authenticated." Jamie stopped breathing. I felt her grip tighten on my arm. "Devin," she whispered, staring at the piece. "That's a real Picasso." I looked closer. The signature was there in the bottom right corner, that famous scrawled Picasso. The numbering 47200 was handwritten in pencil in the bottom left. It looked legitimate to my untrained eyes. But what did I know about art authentication? "It can't be real," I whispered back. "A real Picasso would cost millions." "Not a lithograph print," Jamie said, her teacher voice coming out, the one she used when explaining facts to students. "Original paintings are worth millions, but limited edition prints can be more affordable. I've read about them. This is from 1949, and if it's authenticated..." She trailed off, still staring. The gallery director appeared beside us, as if summoned. "Beautiful piece, isn't it? Picasso created La Colombe as a symbol of peace after World War II. This particular lithograph is from the original 1949 run, one of only 200 authorized by Picasso himself before his death. The authentication certificate is from the Picasso estate, and we have full provenance documentation tracing it back to the original Paris print house." "How much?" Jamie asked before I could stop her. The director smiled. "We'll be auctioning this piece today. The opening bid is set at $4,000, which honestly is a steal for authenticated Picasso. Comparable pieces have sold at Christie's for $15,000 to $20,000. But our mission is making fine art accessible, not just profitable." $4,000. My stomach dropped. That was a significant chunk of our retirement savings. That's more than we planned to spend," I said carefully. "Of course, I completely understand," the director said smoothly. "But consider this an investment, not a purchase. Art, especially from masters like Picasso, appreciates significantly over time. This piece will likely double in value within 5 years, possibly triple within 10. You're not just buying beautiful art to enjoy in your home, you're securing your financial future. The auction started promptly at 2. About 40 passengers filled the chairs arranged before a small podium. The auctioneer was a man in his 50s, with silver hair and a British accent that made everything he said sound authoritative and trustworthy. He opened with a passionate speech about the democratization of fine art, how these auctions allowed regular people to own pieces previously available only to wealthy collectors. The first few pieces sold quickly. A landscape painting went for $1,200. An abstract piece sold for $800. Each time someone won, the entire room applauded and champagne flowed freely. The atmosphere was celebratory, exciting, infectious. Jamie finished her second glass of champagne, and I could see the flush in her cheeks, the brightness in her eyes. Then the Picasso appeared on the auction block. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we come to the crown jewel of today's collection, the auctioneer announced, his voice rising with enthusiasm. An authenticated Pablo Picasso lithograph, La Colombe, from the original 1949 edition. As you can see in your auction catalog, this piece comes with full authentication from the Picasso estate and complete provenance documentation. Opening bid is $4,000. Do I hear 4,000? A paddle went up somewhere behind us. 4,000. 4,500? The auctioneer continued immediately. Another paddle. 4,500. My heart was pounding. Jamie's hand found mine, squeezing tight. 5,000? A pause, then another paddle. 5,000. The bidding continued climbing. 5,500. 6,000. 6,500. Each increment felt like watching something precious slip away. Jamie's face showed pure longing. This wasn't just about owning art. This represented something bigger. A chance to own a piece of history, something created by one of the greatest artists who ever lived. After 33 years teaching children, surviving on modest income, sacrificing so much, didn't she deserve this one beautiful thing? The bidding reached 7,000 and stopped. The auctioneer looked around the room. 7,000 going once. 7,500. I heard my own voice, loud and clear, my paddle raised high. Jamie gasped and turned to me, her eyes wide. I saw shock, gratitude, love, and something that might have been concern all mixed. Together. We have 7,500, the auctioneer announced. Do I hear 8,000? Silence. My heart hammered against my ribs. What had I just done? 7,500 going once, going twice. The auctioneer's gavel came down with a sharp crack. Sold to the gentleman in the blue shirt for $7,500. The room erupted in applause. Jamie threw her arms around me, tears streaming down her face. Devin, I can't believe you just did that. We own a Picasso. A real Picasso. The gallery director appeared immediately with paperwork and a tablet. Congratulations. You've made an excellent investment. Now, with the buyer's premium and insurance, your total comes to $8,500. Will you be paying with card or charging to your cabin? $8,500. The buyer's premium added another $1,000 to the price. I felt dizzy but committed. We'd come this far. Cabin, I said, my voice sounding distant to my own ears. Within minutes, the transaction was complete. The director handed us an elegant folder containing the lithograph's authentication certificate, provenance documentation, and care instructions. She explained the piece would be carefully packaged and delivered to our cabin that evening, protected with professional archival materials. "You've acquired something truly special today," she said, shaking both our hands. "This piece will bring you joy for years and significant financial returns when you're ready to sell. Congratulations again." We floated through the rest of the day in a daze of excitement and disbelief. Other passengers congratulated us at dinner. We drank more champagne to celebrate. That night, when the carefully packaged lithograph was delivered to our cabin, we unwrapped it with trembling hands and stared at it for an hour. We owned a Picasso. After all those years of sacrifice, we finally had something extraordinary. The remaining days of the cruise passed in a blur of glacier viewings and port visits, but nothing compared to the knowledge that back in our cabin, wrapped safely in archival materials, was our Picasso. We got home to Ohio 2 weeks later, exhausted but happy, our heads still full of Alaska's beauty and our prize winning. The first thing we did, even before fully unpacking, was find the perfect spot to hang our new treasure. Above the fireplace in the living room, where every visitor would see it. But first, we decided to have it appraised for insurance purposes. $8,500 was a significant amount, and we needed proper coverage. I called 3 local art galleries before finding one that specialized in authentication and appraisal. The owner, a woman named Catherine who'd studied art history at Columbia, agreed to examine the piece that same week. Catherine arrived at our house on a Thursday afternoon, carrying a leather case of tools and reference materials. She spent 90 minutes examining every inch of the lithograph, under magnification, checking the paper, the printing technique, the signature, comparing it against reference books and databases on her laptop. Finally, she sat back and looked at us with an expression I couldn't quite read. "I have some difficult news," she said quietly. "This is not an authentic Picasso lithograph." The room seemed to tilt. Jamie made a small sound beside me, like she'd been punched. "That's impossible," I said, my voice hoarse. "We have authentication certificates, provenance documentation. The auction house guaranteed it." Catherine opened her laptop and turned it toward us. Authentic Picasso lithographs from 1949 were printed using a specific technique on particular paper stock. This piece is printed on modern paper, likely manufactured within the last 10 years. The printing technique is wrong. The signature is a reproduction, not hand-signed. And these authentication certificates. She pulled out the documents from our folder. These are fabricated. The Picasso estate doesn't issue certificates that look like this. The letterhead is wrong, the seal is fake, and this signature claiming to be from the estate administrator doesn't match any known administrator. But it says 47 of 200, Jamie whispered, pointing at the numbering. "Handwritten in pencil to look authentic," Catherine said gently. "It's a very convincing forgery. I'll give them that. Someone put significant effort into making this look real. But it's not. I'm sorry. Based on materials and printing quality, this reproduction is worth approximately $150 retail. Maybe $200 if you found someone who really wanted it for decorative purposes. $8,500. We'd paid $8,500 for something worth $150. I felt like I might vomit. Beside me, Jamie started crying. Quiet, devastated sobs. "What can we do?" I asked Catherine, already knowing the answer wouldn't be good. "Contact the cruise line immediately. File a complaint. Demand a refund. Document everything." She paused. "But I need to be honest with you. These cruise ship art auctions have been investigated multiple times. They often operate as independent contractors, technically separate from the cruise line itself, which gives the cruise company legal protection. And once you're off the ship, recovering money becomes extremely difficult. We spent the next 3 months fighting. We called Celebrity Cruises dozens of times, escalated to supervisors, filed formal complaints, sent Catherine's appraisal report. Every response was the same. Prestige Art International is an independent contractor. While they operate on our ships, we are not responsible for their sales. You must contact them directly. We tried contacting Prestige Art International. The phone number led to an answering service that never returned calls. The email address bounced back. The company's website disappeared within weeks of our return. We consulted a lawyer. He confirmed what we already suspected. Pursuing legal action would cost more than we'd lost, with minimal chance of recovery. The auction company likely had no assets to seize. The cruise line had protected itself legally. We were, simply put, out of luck. $8,350. Gone. More than we'd spent on our first car. More than our wedding cost. More than any single purchase we'd made in our entire married life, except our house. Gone to professional con artists who preyed on people exactly like us, educated people who thought we were too smart to be fooled. People who'd worked hard our entire lives and just wanted one beautiful thing to show for it. The lithograph still sits in our basement, wrapped in the archival materials it came in, too painful to look at, but impossible to throw away. We can't afford another Alaska cruise now. That $8,500 was supposed to fund several years of smaller trips. Now we're back to budgeting carefully, watching every dollar, feeling like fools. The worst part isn't the money, though that hurts terribly. It's the feeling of betrayal. We trusted the cruise line to protect us. We trusted the professional atmosphere, the authentication certificates, the champagne and elegant gallery setting. We thought our education and life experience would protect us from scams. We were wrong about everything. Jamie doesn't teach art appreciation to her grandchildren anymore. When they visit and ask about the framed prints on our walls, she changes the subject. And when friends ask about our Alaska cruise, we tell them about the glaciers and the wildlife. But we never, ever mention the art auction. The shame is too heavy to share, even now. We spent 37 and 33 years respectively teaching young people to think critically, to question authority, to seek evidence. And in one champagne-fueled afternoon, surrounded by classical music and elegant presentation, we forgot everything we'd spent our lives teaching. That's the lesson we learned on our dream vacation, and it cost us $8,350 we'll never get back. My name is Judson. I'm 28 years old, and I work as a software developer in Austin. I consider myself pretty tech-savvy. The kind of person who uses password managers, enables two-factor authentication on everything, and never clicks suspicious links. I thought I understood digital security better than most people. That confidence made what happened on my January 2024 Carnival Breeze cruise even more infuriating. I didn't lose a single dollar in the end. But what I lost was something else entirely. My peace of mind, 5 days of vacation I'd saved up for months, and my ability to trust basic transactions. This is the story of how a bartender destroyed my trip without me even knowing it was happening until it was too late. I'd booked the Western Caribbean cruise as a solo trip, something I'd never done before. At 28, I'd spent the last 3 years grinding at a startup that had finally been acquired. The payout wasn't life-changing, but it was enough to fund some actual time off and experiences I'd been putting off. My friends were all coupled up or tied down with responsibilities, so I decided to try solo travel. The Carnival Breeze 7-day cruise hitting Cozumel, Belize, and Honduras seemed perfect. Affordable, relaxing, with enough activities to keep me busy without feeling lonely. The first day was embarkation chaos. The usual rush of thousands of people trying to board, find their cabins, and figure out where everything was located. I spent the afternoon exploring the ship, mapping out where I wanted to eat, which shows to catch, and most importantly, where the best bars were. The Carnival breeze had this place called the Alchemy Bar on Deck 5, tucked away near the casino. The promotional materials described it as a mixology experience with craft cocktails and theatrical presentations. It looked cool, sophisticated, different from the typical frozen drinks and beer buckets most cruise passengers seem to favor. That night, exhausted from embarkation day, I grabbed pizza and crashed early. But on night 2, when we were at sea between Miami and Cozumel, I decided to check out the Alchemy Bar. I arrived around 9:30. The bar was sleek and modern, with mood lighting and a display of premium liquors behind glass. Only a handful of other guests were there, which I preferred. The bartender was a guy in his 30s with slicked back hair and a name tag that read, Alchemy Mixologist. He welcomed me with an enthusiastic smile and handed me a menu featuring dozens of craft cocktails with names like Cucumber Stiletto and Smoking Gun. "First time here?" he asked as I scanned the menu. "Yeah, first night, really trying to explore the ship. What do you recommend?" His eyes lit up. "Depends on what you like. You into smoky flavors? Sweet? Bitter? Strong?" We talked for 10 minutes about flavor profiles, his favorite combinations, the technique behind different cocktails. He was charismatic and knowledgeable, the kind bartender who made you feel like a regular even though you just met. I ended up ordering something called a Caribbean Sunset, which he prepared with elaborate flair, muddling fresh fruit, flaming cinnamon sticks, and finishing with a dramatic pour from shoulder height. The drink was genuinely excellent, worth the $18 I'd paid. I nursed it slowly, watching him make drinks for other guests with the same theatrical precision. After about 45 minutes, I ordered a second cocktail, something with bourbon and smoked maple syrup that sounded intriguing. When he brought the check for both drinks, the total came to $38. I handed him my credit card, the same card I used for everything, my main Visa with a $15,000 limit. He took it, swiped it through the card reader mounted on the bar top, and handed it back with a receipt to sign. Standard transaction. I signed, added a tip, and pocketed my card without a second thought. I spent another hour at the bar, chatting with a couple from Oregon and enjoying the atmosphere. Around midnight, I headed back to my cabin, pleasantly buzzed and looking forward to our Cozumel stop the next day. That transaction at the Alchemy Bar felt so forgettable, so routine, that I'd already stopped thinking about it by the time my head hit the pillow. The next morning, we docked in Cozumel. I'd booked a snorkeling excursion through the cruise line, and the underwater reefs were incredible. I spent the entire day off the ship, swimming with tropical fish, eating fresh ceviche at a beach club, and soaking up the sun. I didn't check my phone once. That was the point of vacation, right? Disconnect. Be present. When I got back to the ship around 5 in the evening, exhausted and sunburned but happy, I finally checked my phone. 17 missed calls, 12 text messages, 6 emails, all from my bank's fraud department. My stomach dropped before I even opened the first message. The texts were urgent. Fraud alert. Did you authorize a $847 charge at a Walmart in Cleveland, Ohio? Fraud alert. Did you authorize a $1,245 charge at a Best Buy in Atlanta, Georgia? Fraud alert. Did you authorize a $623 charge at a gas station in Phoenix, Arizona? I felt my hands start shaking. Cleveland, Atlanta, Phoenix. I was on a cruise ship in Mexico. I hadn't authorized any of those charges. I immediately called the fraud hotline. The representative who answered sounded tired but professional. She confirmed what I already knew. My card had been compromised. In the last 48 hours, someone had made 14 fraudulent charges across 4 different states, totaling $3,217. Electronics, gift cards, gas, clothing. They were hitting multiple stores rapid fire, maxing out purchases before the card got shut down. "When did you last use this card?" she asked. "2 nights ago, on the cruise ship at a bar. That was the last time." "And the card has been in your possession since then?" "Yes. It's been in my wallet in my cabin. I haven't used it since that bar." There was a pause. "Sir, it's likely your card information was compromised during that transaction. Skimmers can copy your card details in seconds without you noticing. We'll reverse all fraudulent charges and issue you a new card, but it will take 7 to 10 business days to arrive at your mailing address." 7 to 10 business days. I was on a cruise ship in the middle of the Caribbean with 5 days left, and my primary credit card was now useless. I had a backup debit card with limited funds, but my entire vacation budget had been tied to that visa. "Can you expedite it to the ship?" I asked, already knowing the answer. "Unfortunately, no. We can only mail to verified addresses." I hung up feeling violated and furious. Someone on the ship had stolen my card information. That bartender had seemed so professional, so trustworthy. But it had to be him. That was the only transaction I'd made. I immediately went to guest services on deck 3. The line was long, and by the time I reached the front desk, I was seething with frustration. I explained what happened to the representative, a woman in her 50s who listened with practiced sympathy. "I need to report a theft. My credit card was skimmed at the Alchemy Bar 2 nights ago. The bartender working that night copied my card information, and now there are thousands of dollars in fraudulent charges." Her expression shifted to something more guarded. "Sir, that's a serious accusation. Do you have proof the skimming occurred on board?" "The timeline matches perfectly. I used my card there, and within 48 hours, fraudulent charges started appearing. It's obvious. I understand your frustration, but we need to conduct a proper investigation. I'll file a report with ship security. They'll review footage and interview staff. Someone will contact you within 24 hours. 24 hours. Another day of my vacation wasted dealing with this. I spent the rest of that evening in my cabin, on the phone with my bank, documenting every fraudulent charge, filing police reports online, and trying to figure out my financial situation for the rest of the cruise. The anger was overwhelming. I'd saved for months for this trip. I'd been so careful with my belongings, my wallet, everything. And some bartender I'd tipped generously had robbed me. The next day, we were at sea again. At noon, I got a call from ship security asking me to come to their office on deck 1. A security officer named Yitz Chok, a serious guy in his 40s with a British accent, sat me down and pulled up footage on his computer. "We've reviewed the security cameras covering the Alchemy Bar from the night in question," he said. "I want you to watch this." The footage showed me sitting at the bar, ordering drinks, talking to the bartender. Then came the transaction. The bartender took my card, but instead of swiping it, through the mounted terminal, he briefly turned away, his body blocking the camera's view. When he turned back, he swiped the card through the visible terminal and handed it back to me. The whole thing took maybe 5 seconds. "Watch again," Yitzchak said, replaying it in slow motion. This time I saw it clearly. When the bartender turned away, his hand moved to something below the bar, out of frame. He'd swiped my card through a hidden skimmer before processing the legitimate transaction. We found the skimming device hidden under the bar during our search this morning. Yitzchak continued. It's a handheld unit, battery-powered, stores card data for later retrieval. The bartender's name is Vihan. He's been with Carnival for 2 years. We've already detained him and contacted authorities. He'll be arrested when we dock in Honduras tomorrow. I should have felt vindicated, but instead, I just felt exhausted and angry. How many other people did he do this to? Yitzchak's expression darkened. We're reviewing footage from his entire employment period, based on preliminary analysis, potentially dozens, maybe more. We're contacting every guest we can identify and working with credit card companies to reverse charges. Dozens of people. This guy had been systematically robbing cruise passengers for months, maybe years, and nobody had caught him until now. Your bank has already reversed the charges, Yitzchak added. You won't be financially responsible, and Carnival will be offering compensation for the distress this caused. Someone from guest relations will contact you with details. I left the security office feeling hollow. Yes, the charges were reversed. Yes, they'd caught the guy. But my vacation was ruined. I'd spent 2 full days of my 7-day cruise dealing with fraud departments, security interviews, and stress. I couldn't enjoy the ports. I couldn't relax by the pool. Every time I tried to use my backup card, I felt paranoid. Was this terminal safe? Was this vendor trustworthy? The carefree solo vacation I'd envisioned had become a nightmare of anxiety and anger. The compensation Carnival offered was $200 in onboard credit and a discount on a future cruise. $200 for destroying my vacation. A discount on a future cruise I'd never book because I couldn't trust their security. The remaining days crawled by. I went through the motions, saw the ports, ate the meals, attended the shows. But none of it felt enjoyable anymore. I kept thinking about Vihan the bartender, smiling and making theatrical cocktails while secretly robbing every customer who sat at his bar. I kept thinking about how easily I'd been fooled, how a simple bar transaction had led to this chaos. When I finally got home to Austin, I had 17 new emails from my bank, documentation to file for the police report, and a credit monitoring service to set up. I'd taken a week off work for this vacation. I'd spent thousands of dollars. And what did I have to show for it? Stress, anger, and a deep distrust of any transaction I made. People ask me about the cruise. They see the photos I posted on social media from before everything went wrong. Me snorkeling in Cozumel, smiling at dinner, enjoying the ship. They don't see the hours spent on hold with fraud departments. They don't see me lying awake in my cabin at night, furious and violated. They don't understand that I didn't lose any money, but I lost something more valuable, the ability to relax and trust. I never went back to a cruise ship. I probably never will. And every time I hand my credit card to a bartender, a server, anyone, I watch their hands like a hawk, looking for that telltale moment when they turn away, when they make that extra swipe. Vihan didn't steal money from me. The bank reversed those charges. But he stole my peace of mind, my vacation, and my ability to enjoy something as simple as ordering a drink without suspicion. That's the real cost of his crime, and nobody can reverse that. My name is Aileen. I'm 41 years old, and I've worked as a dentist in London for the past 15 years. I built my practice from nothing, working 80-hour weeks in the beginning, earning the trust of patients one appointment at a time. I'm careful with money, analytical by nature, the kind of person who researches every major purchase for weeks before committing. That's why what happened in Santorini during my May 2023 Mediterranean cruise still keeps me awake at night. I spent 4,200 euros on what I believed was a genuine tanzanite necklace, only to discover it was worth 200. The financial loss was devastating. But what destroyed me was realizing the entire cruise line had been complicit in the scam. This isn't a story about a random con artist. This is about institutional betrayal at the highest level. I'd booked the MSC Seaside Mediterranean cruise to celebrate my 20th wedding anniversary with my husband. We'd planned something more elaborate originally, but between the kids' university fees and renovations on our home, a cruise seemed like the perfect compromise. Affordable luxury, multiple countries, no planning required. The 12-day itinerary covered Greece, Italy, and Croatia, places we'd always wanted to visit. My husband couldn't make it at the last minute. A patient emergency at his veterinary clinic the day before departure meant he had to stay behind. I was devastated. But the cruise was non-refundable, and my sister convinced me to go anyway. "Take time for yourself," she'd said. "When do you ever do that?" So I went alone, carrying the weight of disappointment, but trying to make the best of it. The first week was beautiful. I explored ancient ruins in Rome, ate fresh pasta in Naples, and met other solo travelers at dinner who became temporary friends. But it was Santorini, our stop on day 9, that I'd been anticipating most. The white buildings, blue-domed churches, volcanic cliffs dropping into azure water. Every photo I'd seen looked like a postcard. The night before we docked in Santorini, the cruise director made an announcement during the evening show. She was a woman in her 30s named Arlette, always impeccably dressed, with an accent that sounded vaguely Eastern European but polished. She'd been friendly throughout the cruise, hosting trivia nights and organizing activities. "Tomorrow in Santorini, we have a very special opportunity for our guests," Arlette announced, her voice warm and conspiratorial. "MSC has partnered with Andromeda Jewelers, one of the island's most exclusive and trusted establishments. They specialize in rare gemstones, particularly tanzanite, which is found only in Tanzania and is 1,000 times rarer than diamonds. Andromeda has agreed to offer our passengers a private viewing with certified gemstones at significantly reduced prices. I'll personally be escorting a small group of VIP guests tomorrow morning. If you're interested in authentic Greek jewelry or investment-grade gemstones, please see me after the show. Spaces are extremely limited." Investment-grade gemstones. The phrase caught my attention. I'd been reading about alternative investments lately, diversifying beyond property and stocks. Gemstones, particularly rare ones, had been mentioned in several financial articles as appreciating assets. And tanzanite, I'd heard of it, knew it was valuable, something about limited supply and increasing demand. After the show, I approached Arlette. About 15 other passengers were already gathered around her, asking questions. She handled everyone with practiced charm, emphasizing the exclusivity of the opportunity, the authenticity of the partnership, and the significant savings compared to buying tanzanite in London or other major cities. "How do we know it's legitimate?" an older American woman asked, voicing the concern everyone was thinking. Arlette smiled warmly. "That's exactly why MSC only partners with certified, licensed jewelers. Andromeda has been in business for 30 years. They provide full certification with every purchase, including authentication from independent gemological laboratories. And because they're our exclusive partner, they've agreed to offer our passengers prices 30 to 40% below market value. It's a win-win. They get business, you get authentic gemstones at incredible prices." It sounded reasonable. MSC wouldn't risk their reputation partnering with a fraudulent jeweler, right? And 30 to 40% savings on genuine tanzanite could represent thousands of pounds in value. I signed up for the VIP tour scheduled for 9 the next morning. We docked in Santorini early, and the island looked exactly as I'd imagined. The volcanic cliffs, the whitewashed buildings clinging to steep slopes, the endless blue of sea and sky meeting at the horizon. Our group of 16 passengers met Arlette at the gangway. She was dressed elegantly in white linen, looking every bit the sophisticated tour guide. "Good morning, everyone. Today you're going to experience something truly special. Andromeda Jewelers is located in Fira, the main town, about a 10-minute walk from here. We'll head there together, and I'll stay with you throughout to ensure you have the best experience possible." The walk through Fira was stunning. Narrow cobblestone streets, bougainvillea cascading over walls, shops selling local art and traditional Greek products. Arlette kept up a running commentary about the island's history, the volcanic eruption that shaped its geography, the best restaurants to try later. She felt like a trusted friend, showing us her favorite places. Andromeda Jewelers was tucked into a side street, away from the main tourist thoroughfare. The storefront was elegant, with a discreet sign and windows displaying beautiful jewelry under museum-quality lighting. A bell chimed as we entered, and the interior was cool and luxurious. Soft music played, display cases gleamed, with gold and gemstones, and the air smelled faintly of expensive perfume. A man in his 50s, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, greeted us with a warm smile. "Welcome, welcome. I'm Zen, owner of Andromeda Jewelers. Arlette has told me so much about this wonderful group. Please, make yourselves comfortable. We've prepared champagne and pastries for you." The champagne was excellent. The pastries were delicate and delicious. The entire atmosphere was designed to make us feel special, valued, like VIP guests rather than tourists. Zen launched into a presentation about tanzanite, its discovery in 1967, its unique color-changing properties, its extreme rarity. "Tanzanite is found in only one place on Earth," he explained, showing us a map. "A small area in Tanzania, about 4 square miles. Once the mines are exhausted, which experts predict will happen within the next 10 to 15 years, no more tanzanite will ever be found. That makes it an exceptional investment. Prices have increased 300% in the last decade alone." He showed us certification documents from gemological laboratories, charts demonstrating price appreciation, testimonials from satisfied customers. Everything looked official, professional, convincing. Then he brought out the pieces. Rings, earrings, necklaces, all featuring stunning blue-violet stones that seemed to shift color under the lighting. The craftsmanship was exquisite, the settings intricate and clearly expensive. I found myself drawn to a necklace with a large oval tanzanite pendant surrounded by smaller diamonds. The stone was mesmerizing, catching light and throwing it back in shades of blue and purple I'd never seen before. "That piece is extraordinary," Zen said, noticing my interest. 3.8 carat tanzanite, VS clarity, surrounded by 0.6 carats of VS diamonds. The setting is 18 karat white gold. With full certification, this piece would retail in London for 8 to 10,000 euros. Today, for MSC passengers, 4,200 euros. 4,200 euros. That was roughly 3,600 pounds. A significant amount. But if the piece was genuinely worth 8 to 10,000, it represented enormous value. And if tanzanite continued appreciating as Zen claimed, it could be worth double that in 5 years. "Can I see the certification?" I asked. Zen immediately produced a folder containing documents from the International Gemological Institute, complete with photos of the stone, detailed measurements, and authentication of both the tanzanite and diamonds. Everything looked legitimate to my untrained eyes. Official letterhead, stamps, signatures, even holographic security features. "I need to think about it," I said, though I could feel myself being pulled in. Of course," Zen said smoothly. "This is a significant investment. But I must be honest, we only have 2 pieces of this quality available today, and with 16 guests." He trailed, off meaningfully, letting the implication hang in the air. Scarcity, competition, the fear of missing out. I watched as other passengers started making purchases. The American woman who'd asked about legitimacy bought a pair of tanzanite earrings. A couple from Germany purchased a ring. Each transaction was celebrated with more champagne, congratulations, and Arlet's enthusiastic approval. "You have such excellent taste," Arlet said quietly beside me, gesturing to the necklace I was still holding. "That piece is absolutely stunning on you. And honestly, at this price, you'll never find anything comparable in London. I bought tanzanite here 2 years ago, and it's already appreciated 40%. Arlet owned pieces from here." That detail felt significant. If the cruise director herself shopped here, it had to be legitimate. My hands were shaking slightly as I handed Zen my credit card. 4,200 euros. The most I'd ever spent on jewelry in my life. But it was an investment, I told myself. Something I could pass down to my daughter, something that would appreciate in value, something beautiful to mark this trip, even if my husband hadn't been able to join me. The transaction took minutes. Zen packaged the necklace in an elegant box with all the certification documents, care instructions, and even insurance recommendations. Arlet congratulated me, giving me a warm hug. "You're going to treasure that piece forever," she said. I walked out of Andromeda Jewelers feeling exhilarated and terrified in equal measure. I'd just spent a massive amount of money, but I owned something extraordinary. Something rare and valuable and beautiful. The rest of the day in Santorini passed in a blur. I explored the island, took photos, ate lunch overlooking the caldera. But my mind kept returning to the necklace safely stored in my cabin. I couldn't wait to get home and show my husband, to have it appraised for insurance, to wear it to special occasions. 2 weeks later, back in London, I took the necklace to a jeweler I'd known for years. He'd custom-made my engagement ring and had always been honest and reliable. I wanted to have the piece properly appraised for insurance and perhaps get a second opinion on its value. He examined the necklace under magnification for 20 minutes. Then he looked up at me with an expression I couldn't read. "Aileen, I have some difficult news. This isn't genuine tanzanite. It's synthetic, lab-created." The room seemed to tilt. "That's impossible. I have certification from the International Gemological Institute. It's right here." I pulled out the documents Zen had given me. He examined the paperwork and shook his head. "These are fake. The IGI doesn't format certificates this way, and this signature doesn't match any authorized gemologist. The hologram is a decent forgery, but it's not genuine. And the stone itself, while beautiful, is lab-created synthetic corundum treated to look like tanzanite. The diamonds are real but very low quality, probably worth 50 to 80 pounds total. The gold is 18 karat, that part is true. But the overall value of this piece is approximately 200 euros retail. Maybe 250 if you found the right buyer. 4,200 euros. I'd paid 4,200 euros for something worth 200. I felt like I might vomit. My hands went cold. my vision blurred with tears I refused to let fall in public. "What can I do?" I whispered. "Contact the cruise line immediately. File a complaint. This is fraud, pure and simple. Unfortunately, these port jewelry scams are common. The cruise lines form partnerships with jewelers. The jewelers sell fake or drastically overvalued pieces, and the cruise line takes a commission on every sale. It's very difficult to get refunds, but you have to try." I spent the next 4 months fighting. I called MSC dozens of times, filed formal complaints, sent the independent appraisal, demanded refunds. Every response was a variation of the same message. Andromeda Jewelers is an independent business. While we facilitate introductions to local partners, we are not responsible for transactions between passengers and local vendors. I contacted Andromeda Jewelers directly. The number was disconnected. The email bounced. I found their supposed website, but it had been taken down. I hired a solicitor who confirmed what I already suspected. MSC had carefully structured the relationship to provide legal distance. Yes, Arlet had personally escorted us. Yes, the partnership was heavily promoted. But technically, MSC wasn't liable for the transaction itself. My solicitor did uncover one devastating detail through FOIA requests. MSC received a 30% commission on all sales from Andromeda Jewelers. 30%. Arlet had walked us into that store knowing the cruise line would profit directly from whatever we bought. The VIP treatment, the champagne, her personal endorsement, it was all designed to build trust so we'd spend more. And MSC pocketed 30% of every fraudulent sale. £3,580. That's what I lost in British currency. More than I'd spent on my first car, more than our monthly mortgage payment. Gone to a systematic scam facilitated by a company I'd trusted with my vacation and my money. The necklace sits in my jewelry box now, unworn and unwearable. Every time I see it, I feel the same crushing wave of shame and anger. I'm a dentist. I'm educated, analytical, careful. I research everything. And yet, I was completely fooled by champagne, official-looking documents, and a cruise director's warm smile. I'll never take another cruise. I'll never trust another exclusive partner recommendation. And I'll never stop wondering how many other passengers walked into Andromeda Jewelers that day, how many thousands of euros MSC profited from that single port stop, how many people are still wearing their fake tanzanite pieces, believing they're genuine. The worst part isn't even the money, though that hurts terribly. It's the betrayal. I trusted MSC to protect me, to vet their partners, to prioritize passenger welfare over profit. Instead, they built an entire system designed to exploit that trust. Arlet knew those stones were fake. MSC knew. Zen certainly knew. And they all smiled and congratulated me while taking my money. That's what I learned in Santorini. Sometimes the most beautiful views hide the ugliest truths. And sometimes the people you trust most are the ones profiting from your deception. My name is Coraline. I'm 52 years old, and I've worked as a real estate agent in San Francisco for 28 years. In my business, you learn to read contracts carefully, question every charge, and never sign anything without understanding exactly what you're agreeing to. I've negotiated million-dollar deals, caught accounting errors that would have cost my clients thousands, and prided myself on being detail-oriented and financially savvy. That's why what happened on my February 2024 Panama Canal cruise still makes me question everything I thought I knew about protecting myself. I booked one massage for $145. My final bill showed $847 in spa charges for treatments I never received. And despite 3 months of fighting, I still lost over $300 to what I can only describe as systematic fraud. This isn't about making a mistake. This is about a spa operation that deliberately fabricated charges and forged signatures, knowing most passengers would never catch it until it was too late. I'd booked the Princess Cruises Crown Princess Panama Canal crossing as a solo trip, something I'd been planning for 2 years. My daughter had gotten married the previous summer, my last parent had passed away 6 months ago, and I was emotionally exhausted. The real estate market had been brutal, and I needed space to breathe, to process everything, to just exist without responsibilities for a while. A 14-day cruise through the Panama Canal seemed perfect. Historic, educational, relaxing, and long enough to truly disconnect. Embarkation day was February 10th in Fort Lauderdale. The process was smooth, and by 2 in the afternoon, I was unpacking in my balcony cabin. The ship wouldn't depart until 5, which gave me time to explore. I'd read online that spa appointments booked early in the cruise often had better availability and sometimes discounted rates, so I decided to check out the Lotus Spa on Deck 15. The spa was beautiful. Soft lighting, calming music, the scent of eucalyptus and lavender in the air. The reception area had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the ocean, plush seating, and a menu of treatments that read like a luxury resort. A young woman at the reception desk, probably mid-20s with a name tag I didn't catch, greeted me with an enthusiastic smile. First time visiting the Lotus Spa? Yes, I just boarded. I was hoping to book a massage for later this week. She pulled up a tablet and scrolled through appointments. We actually have availability today at 4 o'clock if you're interested. Embarkation day specials, 15% off select treatments. 4 o'clock gave me an hour. Perfect timing to relax before the mandatory muster drill and sail away. What do you recommend? Our signature aromatherapy massage is wonderful. 60 minutes, normally 170, but with the embarkation special, 145. It includes a heated table, essential oils customized to your preference, and a complimentary scalp treatment. $145 was reasonable for a cruise ship spa. I'd paid more in San Francisco. Let's do it. She had me fill out a brief health questionnaire on the tablet, asking about allergies, injuries, and pressure preferences. Standard spa intake forms. Then she handed me a receipt to sign, charging the $145 to my cabin account. I signed it on the tablet with my finger, the electronic signature looking vaguely like my actual signature, but rushed and imprecise the way digital signatures always are. Perfect. Your therapist will be Kiana. Head through those doors, take a robe and slippers from the changing room, and she'll meet you in treatment room 3. The massage was excellent. Kiana was skilled and professional, adjusting pressure when I asked, using lavender oil I'd selected, and including the promised scalp treatment at the end. The heated table was heavenly, and for 60 minutes, I forgot about property contracts, grief, and exhaustion. When it ended, I felt like a different person. Kiana showed me back to the changing room. Take your time getting ready. When you're dressed, you can head back through reception. Have a wonderful cruise. I changed back into my clothes, left the spa feeling relaxed and loose, and went to my cabin to prepare for the muster drill. The massage had been worth every penny. I made a mental note to book another one mid-cruise. The next 13 days were spectacular. Watching the ship navigate the Panama Canal locks was surreal, witnessing engineering on a scale I'd never imagined. We stopped in Cartagena, Costa Rica, Guatemala. I took excursions, read books on my balcony, and finally felt the tension that had gripped me for months starting to release. The cruise was exactly what I needed. On the final day, as we sailed back toward Fort Lauderdale, I checked my onboard account to review charges before disembarkation. I wanted to make sure everything was accurate and budget my final day purchases accordingly. The account pulled up on my cabin TV, showing itemized charges from the entire cruise. My stomach dropped. The spa charges alone totaled $847. $847. I'd only had one massage. I scrolled through the itemized list, my heart pounding. Aromatherapy massage, 60 min, 145. Deep tissue massage, 90 min, 215. Hot stone therapy, 75 min, 29. Facial, premium anti-aging, 60 min, 175. Spa products, serum set, 98. Spa products, body cream, 25. 7 separate charges. I'd only authorized one. I'd never received a deep tissue massage, never had hot stone therapy, never gotten a facial, and I certainly never purchased spa products. This was wrong. Completely, obviously wrong. I immediately called guest services from my cabin phone. The line rang for 3 minutes before someone answered. I need to dispute charges on my account. There are spa treatments listed that I never received. The representative sounded tired. It was the last day of the cruise, and they were probably dealing with hundreds of similar calls. You'll need to speak with the spa directly about spa charges. Their manager can review your account. The spa is open until 9 tonight. I went straight to the Lotus Spa. The reception area was quieter now, just one staff member behind the desk, a different woman than the one who checked me in 2 weeks ago. I explained the situation, trying to keep my voice calm but feeling panic rising. There are over $700 in charges on my account for treatments I never received. I had one massage on embarkation day, that's it. Nothing else? She looked concerned and then pulled up my account on her computer. Let me get the manager. One moment, please. 5 minutes later, a woman in her 40s emerged from the back. Her name tag read, Spa Manager Kira. She had a professional smile that didn't reach her eyes. I understand there's a concern about your spa charges. Let me pull up your file. She typed on the computer, scrolling through screens. I see here you had multiple treatments throughout the cruise. Aromatherapy massage on February 10th, deep tissue massage on February 13th, hot stone therapy on February 16th, facial on February 19th. Each time you signed authorization forms charging treatments to your cabin. That's impossible. I only had one massage the first day. I never came back. Kira's expression hardened slightly. We have signed authorization forms for every treatment. Let me print them for you. She disappeared into the back office and returned with several printed pages. Each one showed an itemized treatment with a charge amount and a signature line at the bottom. Every signature line had a scrawled signature that was supposed to be mine. I stared at them, my hands starting to shake. These aren't my signatures. They're electronic signatures from our tablet system, captured at the time of each treatment. You would have signed these before each session. I never signed these. Look at them. They don't even look similar to each other or to my actual signature. These are forged. Kira's voice became cooler. Our staff would never forge signatures. That's a serious accusation. These charges were authorized by you at the time of service. If you don't remember receiving treatments, perhaps you had more wine at dinner than you realized. But that doesn't negate your responsibility for charges you authorized. The condescension in her tone made my blood boil. I did not authorize these. I did not receive these treatments. This is fraud. I'm sorry you feel that way. But our records are clear. All charges stand. If you'd like to dispute them formally, you can file a complaint with Princess Cruises after disembarkation. But I can tell you from experience, signed authorization Forms are considered proof of service. I left the spa shaking with fury and disbelief. Back in my cabin, I examined the printed authorization forms more carefully. The signatures were all different from each other. Some were just loops and squiggles. Some vaguely resembled letters. None looked anything like my actual signature, which I'd practiced to be consistent and professional for signing real estate contracts. I took photos of everything. I pulled up my calendar and checked the dates of the supposed treatments. February 13th, I'd been on an all-day excursion in Cartagena, off the ship from 8 in the morning until 6 at night. I had photos time-stamped from that entire day. February 16th. I'd been in my cabin dealing with a work emergency via the ship's Wi-Fi on video calls that were logged and time-stamped. February 19th, I'd been at the pool from noon until 5, had dinner at 6, and attended a show at 8. I had witnesses, photos, and documentation proving I couldn't have been at the spa during any of those times. At guest services that evening, I filed a formal dispute with all my evidence. The representative took my information and said someone would follow up, but warned me that final bills were due by 6 the following morning before disembarkation. If I wanted to dispute charges, I'd need to pay the full amount and seek reimbursement later. I paid the $847 because I had no choice. If I didn't pay, they'd flag my account and potentially prevent me from disembarking. But I documented everything, took photos of everything, and vowed to fight this until I got my money back. The next 3 months were a nightmare of phone calls, emails, and escalations. I called Princess Cruises customer service 17 times. I sent my evidence photos showing I was off the ship during one treatment, my time-stamped video call records proving I was in my cabin during another, and witness statements from passengers I'd been with at the pool during the third. Every response from Princess was the same form letter. We have reviewed your claim. Our spa records show signed authorization forms for all disputed charges. While we understand your concern, signed documents are considered proof of service. As a gesture of goodwill, we are willing to refund $400 of the disputed charges. $400. They were offering to refund less than half of the fraudulent charges and calling it a gesture of goodwill. I hired a lawyer to send a formal demand letter. The lawyer's fees cost me $300 just to draft and send the letter. Princess responded with the same offer. $400, take it or leave it. My lawyer advised me that pursuing legal action would cost thousands in fees for a case worth maybe $800, with no guarantee of winning since Princess would argue I'd signed the electronic forms. The cost-benefit analysis didn't make sense. I was trapped. I accepted the $400 refund, which meant I lost $302 to the spa fraud, plus $300 in lawyer fees. $602 total, plus 3 months of stress, anger, and countless hours on the phone. But the money wasn't even the worst part. It was knowing exactly what had happened and being powerless to prove it. Someone at that spa, whether it was Kira or another staff member, had deliberately added fake treatments to my account throughout the cruise. They'd forged signatures on authorization forms, knowing that most passengers don't check their accounts until the final day, when it's too late to dispute effectively. They knew that even passengers who did dispute would face an uphill battle proving the treatments never happened. It was a systematic scam, and Princess either didn't care or was complicit. I'll never cruise again. Not with Princess, not with anyone. And I'll never trust a spa to bill me later. Cash payment up front, receipt immediately, or no service. Those are my new rules. People ask me about my Panama Canal cruise. They see the photos I posted of the locks, the rainforests, the beautiful ports. They don't see the months I spent fighting Princess cruises, the hours on hold with customer service, the lawyer fees, the frustration of knowing I was robbed and being unable to do anything about it. They don't understand that the $302 I lost wasn't really about the money. It was about being treated like a liar when I was telling the truth. It was about a company that valued profit over passenger trust. It was about being exhausted and frustrated to the point where accepting a partial refund felt like the only way to move on with my life. I spent 28 years reading contracts carefully, protecting my clients, catching every discrepancy. And in one massage booking, I walked into a system designed to defraud me. The worst part is knowing how many other passengers probably never even noticed the extra charges, or noticed but didn't have the energy to fight, or fought and gave up. Kira and her spa team are probably still there, still adding unauthorized charges, still forging signatures, still telling passengers they're mistaken or drunk when they complain. That's what I learned on my dream cruise through the Panama Canal. Sometimes the most relaxing experience becomes the most exhausting fight. And sometimes, no matter how careful you are, the system is rigged against you from the start. My name is David. I'm 45 years old, and I've worked as a construction foreman in Chicago for the past 22 years. I'm not a professional gambler, but I know blackjack. I've studied the game for 15 years, learned basic strategy until it's second nature, and can count cards well enough to gain a small edge in the right conditions. I've won money in Vegas, Atlantic City, and dozens of casinos across the country. I understand probability. I recognize patterns, and I know when the math doesn't add up. That's why what happened on my August 2023 Bahamas cruise on the Norwegian Epic still fills me with rage every time I think about it. I lost $2,400 over 3 nights playing video blackjack machines that I'm now convinced were deliberately programmed to cheat. And the worst part? Norwegian Cruise Line had already settled a class action lawsuit about rigged casino machines the year before. But I didn't know that until it was too late. This isn't a story about bad luck or poor gambling decisions. This is about a cruise line that knowingly operated fraudulent gaming equipment and got away with it because passengers like me had no idea we were playing a rigged game. I'd booked the Norwegian Epic 4-night Bahamas loop as a last-minute getaway in August. Work had been brutal through the summer, managing 3 construction sites simultaneously in 100-degree heat, dealing with supply chain delays and contractor issues that added weeks to every timeline. My wife suggested I take a few days for myself while she visited her sister in Michigan. "Go decompress," she'd said. "Gamble a little, sit by the pool, just relax." The ship was massive, one of Norwegian's largest vessels, and the casino was impressive. It occupied a huge space on deck 6, with rows of slot machines, poker tables, roulette wheels, and an entire section dedicated to electronic table games. I'd played on cruise ship casinos before and generally found them fair, if slightly tighter than land-based casinos. The house edge was higher, but that's expected. They're captive audiences, so they can afford to be less generous with odds. The first night, after dinner and the evening show, I wandered into the casino around 10. The energy was exactly what I needed. The sounds of slot machines, the excitement of players winning at craps, the focused silence at the poker tables. I wasn't interested in slots or table games with dealers. I wanted video blackjack, the electronic terminals where you play against a computer simulation. I found a bank of 6 video blackjack machines near the back of the casino. They were modern touchscreen units, branded with Norwegian's logo, with minimum bets of $5 and maximum bets of $500. I sat down at the middle machine, inserted $200 in cash, and started playing. The first hour went normally. I won some hands, lost some hands, staying relatively even. Basic strategy was working as expected. When the dealer showed a 6, I doubled down on 11 and won. When I had 16 against a dealer 10, I hit and busted, as probability dictates will happen. The random distribution felt normal. But around the 90-minute mark, something started bothering me. I couldn't put my finger on it initially, just a nagging sense that something was off. The dealers seemed to be winning more than probability suggested. I started paying closer attention, mentally tracking outcomes. Over the next hour, I observed something that made my stomach tighten. The dealer was busting far less frequently than mathematically expected. In blackjack, when a dealer shows a low card like 4, 5, or 6, they're in a weak position. They have to hit until they reach 17 or higher, which means they frequently bust. That's why basic strategy tells players to stand on weak hands when the dealer shows these cards. You let the dealer bust themselves. But it wasn't happening. Hand after hand, the dealer would show a 5 or 6, draw multiple cards, and somehow land on 17, 18, or 19 without busting. I started keeping precise count. Over the next 47 hands, where the dealer showed 2 through 6, the dealer busted only 4 times. 4 times out of 47 hands. That's an 8.5% bust rate. In real blackjack, that rate should be around 40%. The math was impossible. I switched machines thinking maybe I'd hit a weird statistical anomaly on that particular unit. The second machine showed the same pattern. Low dealer bust rates, improbable draws that gave the dealer winning hands, outcomes that defied basic probability. By the end of the first night, I was down $400. I left the casino suspicious, but not yet convinced. Variance happens. Short-term results don't always match long-term probability. Maybe I just hit a bad run. The second night, I returned with a plan. I would play conservatively, track every hand carefully, and document the results. I brought a small notepad and pen, sitting at the same video blackjack machines. 3 hours of play confirmed my suspicions. The patterns were undeniable. Dealer bust rates impossibly low. Player blackjacks occurring less frequently than the 3.8% probability dictates. Dealer blackjacks happening more frequently. Hands where I doubled down on favorable counts, losing at rates far exceeding normal variance. I lost another $900 that night, and I was no longer playing for fun. I was playing to confirm what I already knew. These machines were rigged. On the third night, I went to the casino with my remaining funds and a growing anger. I found a different set of video blackjack machines, thinking maybe the bank I'd been playing was the problem. Same results. Dealer bust rates around 10% when they should be 40%. Improbable draws giving the house winning hands over and over. I sat there watching other players at the machines around me. A retired couple feeding money into the terminals, laughing and treating it like entertainment. A young guy in his 20s, clearly drunk, betting maximum amounts and losing hand after hand. None of them seemed to notice what I was seeing. They were all just accepting the losses as bad luck, as gambling, as the expected outcome. I lost another $1,100 that night. $2,400 total over 3 nights. More than I'd ever lost in any casino anywhere, despite playing correct basic strategy and making mathematically sound decisions. On the final morning, before disembarkation, I went to the casino manager's office. A man in his 50s, wearing a suit with a Norwegian name tag that read Casino Director, greeted me with professional courtesy. "I need information about your video blackjack machines," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. Specifically, I want to know the payout percentages and the algorithm specifications." His expression shifted slightly, becoming more guarded. "Can I ask why you're requesting this information?" "Because I've played 47 documented hands and tracked dealer bust rates that are statistically impossible for fair blackjack. The machines are either malfunctioning or programmed with unfair algorithms." He sat back in his chair, his face now completely neutral. "I can assure you all our gaming equipment is certified and regulated. We undergo regular audits to ensure compliance with gaming standards." "Then you should have no problem providing the payout percentages and algorithm specifications. Every land-based casino publishes this information." "That's proprietary information. Our gaming systems are developed by third-party vendors, and we're not permitted to disclose technical specifications." "So you're refusing to provide transparency about games where passengers are losing thousands of dollars?" His voice became firmer. "Sir, I understand you're frustrated about your losses, but gambling inherently involves risk. Sometimes players lose. That doesn't mean the equipment is unfair. If you believe you have a legitimate complaint, you can file it with Norwegian Cruise Line's customer service after disembarkation. But I can tell you, we receive these complaints regularly, and our equipment has always been certified as compliant." The way he said, "We receive these complaints regularly," made my blood run cold. They knew. Other passengers had complained, and Norwegian was doing nothing. I left his office and went straight to my cabin to research. What I found made me physically ill. In September 2022, Norwegian Cruise Line had settled a class action lawsuit regarding electronic gaming machines on their ships. Multiple passengers had sued, claiming the machines were programmed with algorithms that violated fair gaming standards. The lawsuit alleged that electronic blackjack machines specifically were rigged to produce dealer outcomes that defied probability, giving the house an edge far beyond standard blackjack. Norwegian had settled for an undisclosed amount without admitting wrongdoing. The settlement included no requirement to fix or remove the machines, just a payout to the plaintiffs and a confidential agreement that buried the details. I'd lost $2,400 on machines that had been the subject of a lawsuit for being rigged, and Norwegian was still operating them. I filed a complaint with Norwegian after disembarkation. I sent my documented hand observations, my calculations showing impossible bust rates, references to the class action settlement, and a demand for a refund. 2 weeks later, I received a form response. "Thank you for your feedback. Our casino games are certified and audited regularly. We're sorry you experienced losses, but gambling involves risk. We cannot offer refunds for gaming losses." I contacted the law firm that had handled the class action. They told me the settlement had a cutoff date, and my cruise fell outside the claim period. I could try to file a new lawsuit, but it would require finding other passengers with similar experiences, funding expensive legal discovery, and fighting a company with unlimited legal resources. For $2,400, it wasn't viable. I was stuck. I'd lost money on games I now had documented evidence were unfair. Norwegian knew their machines had been challenged in court. They'd settled rather than defend the fairness of their equipment. And they were still operating those same machines, taking money from passengers who had no idea they were playing a rigged game. $2,400, more than a week's salary, more than I'd spent on the entire cruise fare, gone to machines that I'm convinced were deliberately programmed to cheat. The money hurts. But what really eats at me is the betrayal. Casinos are supposed to operate on transparent odds. You know the house has an edge, but you know what that edge is, and you can make informed decisions about whether to play. These video blackjack machines had hidden, undisclosed odds that made winning nearly impossible. and Norwegian kept them running even after being sued, because they knew most passengers would never notice, never document their observations, never fight back. I'll never gamble on a cruise ship again, and I'll tell anyone who'll listen about what Norwegian is doing. Those machines are still there, on the Epic and probably other ships in their fleet. Still taking money from passengers who think they're playing fair blackjack. Still producing impossibly low dealer bust rates. Still generating complaints that Norwegian dismisses as sore losers who don't understand gambling. But I do understand gambling. I understand probability, variance, and statistical analysis. And I understand when the math doesn't lie. Those machines were rigged. Norwegian knew it. And they let me lose $2,400 anyway, because profit mattered more than honesty. I learned on my Bahamas cruise. Sometimes the house doesn't just have an edge. Sometimes the house cheats. And when you're trapped on a ship in international waters playing on machines with proprietary algorithms, there's nothing you can do about it except lose your money and learn the lesson too late. My name is Emma. I'm 29 years old, and I teach second grade in Miami. On a teacher's salary, every dollar matters. I budget carefully, clip coupons, and research every purchase to make sure I'm getting value for my money. I'm not naive about marketing tactics or upsell schemes. I teach 7-year-olds, which means I spend my days spotting manipulation and redirecting behavior. I thought those skills would protect me. But in December 2023, on what was supposed to be a magical Disney cruise with my mom, I got trapped in a photo package scam so cleverly designed that by the time I realized what was happening, I'd already lost $599. The worst part wasn't the money. It was feeling foolish, embarrassed, and manipulated by a company that built its entire brand on trust and family values. This is the story of how Disney turned a complimentary promise into a mandatory purchase, and how I learned that even the most magical company on Earth will exploit passengers when there's profit involved. I'd booked the Disney Dream 4-night Caribbean cruise as a Christmas gift for my mom. She'd been diagnosed with breast cancer in March, gone through surgery and radiation through the summer, and been declared cancer-free in October. The whole year had been terrifying, exhausting, and emotionally draining for both of us. My dad had passed away 3 years earlier, so it was just the two of us navigating her diagnosis, her treatment, and her recovery. By December, we both needed something to celebrate, something joyful to mark the end of that horrible year. Disney cruises aren't cheap, especially during the holidays. The 4-night sailing cost me $2,800 for an inside cabin, but I'd saved for months, picking up summer tutoring jobs and selling crafts on Etsy to afford it. My mom had always wanted to go on a Disney cruise, but never had the chance. This was going to be perfect, magical, exactly what we both needed. Embarkation day was December 18th in Port Canaveral. The moment we walked into the terminal, Disney magic was everywhere. Cast members in costume, festive decorations, music playing, and an atmosphere of pure excitement. As we went through the boarding process, we came to the photo station. A photographer with a professional camera and a backdrop featuring the Disney Dream ship logo greeted us enthusiastically. "Welcome aboard. Let's capture your embarkation moment. Stand right here, big smiles." My mom and I posed together, arms around each other, genuinely happy. The photographer took several shots, adjusting our positions, getting different angles. Then she handed us a card with a number on it. "These photos will be available in your stateroom gallery within a few hours. All embarkation photos come with complimentary digital downloads, so you can access them through the Cruise Navigator app or the photo gallery on Deck 4. Enjoy your magical voyage. Complimentary digital downloads." Those were her exact words. I remember because I was so pleased. Professional photos that we could download for free, share with family, and keep forever to remember this special trip. That felt like classic Disney generosity, the kind of magical touches that made their brand special. The first 2 days of the cruise were wonderful. We explored the ship, ate too much food, watched Broadway quality shows, and spent hours just talking and laughing together. My mom looked healthier and happier than she had in months. The stress and fear that had defined our entire year finally felt like it was lifting. On day 3, we decided to check out our embarkation photos. We went to the photo gallery on deck 4, a bright space with dozens of photos displayed on screens and walls. A cast member at the desk greeted us warmly. "Hi, looking for your photos? I can pull them up by your stateroom number." I gave him our cabin number, and he typed on his computer. Within seconds, our embarkation photos appeared on the screen in front of us. They were beautiful. Professional quality, perfect lighting, both of us looking genuinely happy. There were 4 different shots from various angles. "These are perfect," I said. "Can we get the digital downloads?" His smile didn't falter, but something shifted in his expression. "Absolutely. The digital photo package is $599 for unlimited downloads of all your photos throughout the cruise." My stomach dropped. "Wait, what?" The photographer said embarkation photos came with complimentary digital downloads. "Oh yes, the photo session itself is complimentary. Everyone gets their photo taken at embarkation at no charge. But to access the digital files, you'll need to purchase a package." That's not what she said. She specifically said the embarkation photos come with complimentary digital downloads. He maintained his friendly tone, but his words were firm. "I apologize for any confusion, but our photo policy is that the session is complimentary, not the digital files. To download any photos, you need to purchase a package. We have the unlimited package for $599, which gives you access to all photos taken during your cruise, or you can purchase individual prints starting at $19.99 for a 4x6. $19 for a single print, or $600 for downloads? Those are the only options?" That's correct. The unlimited package is actually the best value if you want digital files, because you get access to all photos taken throughout the cruise. Professional photographers are stationed at all character meet and greets, dining rooms, and special events. Most guests end up with 50 to 100 photos by the end of the cruise. I looked at the screen showing our 4 embarkation photos. The only 4 photos I wanted. 4 photos that would cost me either $80 for prints or $600 for digital downloads. "Can I just buy digital downloads of these specific 4 photos?" "Unfortunately, we don't offer individual digital downloads. It's either the unlimited package or physical prints." This felt wrong, deliberately misleading. The photographer had told us the embarkation photos came with complimentary digital downloads. Not the session, the downloads. And now I was being told the only way to get digital files was to spend $600. "I need to think about it," I said, my voice tight. "Of course. Just so you know, the package price goes up after tomorrow. Right now it's $599, but starting day 4, it increases to $699. So if you're considering it, today's the last day for the lower price." Artificial urgency. A pricing deadline designed to pressure immediate purchase. I recognized the sales tactic, and it made me even more frustrated. My mom and I left the photo gallery, and I could see the disappointment on her face. "It's okay, honey. We don't need the photos. We have our memories." But I wanted those photos. This cruise was supposed to commemorate her beating cancer, our surviving the worst year of our lives. Those embarkation photos captured genuine joy, and they'd been taken under the explicit promise that we could download them. Now I was being told that promise meant nothing unless I paid $600. I spent the rest of the day wrestling with the decision. $600 was more than a month of groceries. It was a car payment. It was money I'd worked incredibly hard to save. But those photos mattered. They captured a moment I knew we'd want to remember forever. That evening, after dinner, I went back to the photo gallery. A different cast member was working, a woman in her 40s who greeted me with the same practiced Disney warmth. "I want to purchase the unlimited photo package," I said, the words feeling like defeat. "Wonderful. Let me get that set up for you." She processed the transaction, charging $599 to my stateroom account. Then she showed me how to access the photos through the Cruise Navigator app. "All your photos will appear here as they're taken throughout the cruise. You can download them anytime during the voyage or for up to 45 days after disembarkation. Enjoy capturing all your magical moments." I downloaded our 4 embarkation photos immediately, grateful to finally have them, but feeling sick about the cost. Then I looked through the rest of the photos in our account. There were 63 photos total, 4 embarkation photos that I wanted, and 59 photos of random strangers, character meet and greet photos of families I'd never seen, dinner photos from tables we'd never sat at, deck party photos of crowds where we didn't appear. The photographers stationed throughout the ship apparently took photos of everyone and uploaded them under everyone's account numbers, assuming people would buy the package to get their own photos and not care about the hundreds of unwanted images filling their galleries. 90% of the photos I'd just paid $600 to access were completely useless to me. I'd purchased an unlimited package that was only valuable if you wanted unlimited photos of strangers. I went back to the photo gallery desk. The same woman was still there. "I just purchased the unlimited package, but almost all the photos in my account are of other passengers. Can I get a partial refund, since I'm only using 4 photos?" Her smile remained, but her words were firm. "I'm sorry, but the package is non-refundable once purchased. The unlimited aspect means you have access to all photos taken, but you're not required to download them all. Most guests only download the photos they want. But I was told I needed this package to access any digital downloads. I don't need unlimited access. I need 4 specific photos." "I understand, but our policy doesn't allow for individual digital photo sales. The package is the only option for digital downloads. Can I return the package and just buy prints instead?" Photo packages are non-refundable after purchase. That policy is disclosed during the transaction. I'd been trapped. Deliberately, systematically trapped. The photographer had promised complimentary digital downloads. The gallery staff had structured pricing, so the only realistic option for digital files was the $600 unlimited package. And once purchased, the package was non-refundable, even though 90% of its content was worthless. The rest of the cruise felt tainted. Every time I saw a Disney photographer stationed at a character meet or restaurant, I felt angry. They were taking photos they knew would be uploaded to random passenger accounts, creating the illusion of value in the unlimited package, while really just filling galleries with junk. On disembarkation day, I filed a complaint with guest services. I explained the misleading embarkation promise, the forced package purchase, the worthless photos filling my account. The cast member listened sympathetically and said someone would follow up. 3 weeks later, I received an email from Disney Cruise Line. They apologized for any miscommunication regarding the photo policy. They confirmed that photography sessions are complimentary, but digital downloads require package purchase. They offered me a $50 onboard credit for a future cruise as a gesture of goodwill. $50 for taking $600 under false pretenses. I replied explaining that I wasn't booking another Disney cruise, that the misleading promise and forced package structure felt like fraud, and that $50 didn't address the fundamental dishonesty of their system. Their next email was a form response thanking me for my feedback and closing my complaint. $600. Gone. For 4 photos I was explicitly told would be free to download. Trapped by artificial pricing structures that forced an all-or-nothing purchase. Stuck with a non-refundable package filled with 90% useless content. I'm a teacher. I make $38,000 a year. $600 represents weeks of careful budgeting, hours of extra work, sacrifices of small luxuries to save for something special. And Disney took it knowing their pricing structure was deliberately designed to trap passengers like me. My mom and I have those 4 embarkation photos. They're beautiful, and I'm glad we have them. But every time I look at them, I don't think about the magical cruise or celebrating her recovery. I think about feeling foolish and manipulated. I think about how Disney's promise of complimentary downloads was technically true only if you redefined what complimentary meant. I think about how a company built on magic and trust chose profit over honesty. I'll never go on another Disney cruise. And when my second graders come to school wearing Mickey Mouse shirts, excitedly telling me about their Disney trips, I smile and encourage their joy. But I know something they don't yet. Sometimes magic is just marketing. And sometimes the happiest place on earth is only happy if you can afford to be trapped. My name is Thomas. I'm 38 years old, and I work as an accountant in Stockholm. Numbers don't lie. That's what I've built my career on. The absolute certainty that when you track data properly, patterns reveal truth. I audit financial statements, catch discrepancies that others miss, and pride myself on spotting manipulation in spreadsheets and billing records. That training should have protected me. But in October 2023, on what was supposed to be a once-in-a-lifetime transatlantic crossing aboard the Cunard Queen Mary II, I discovered that even my professional skepticism couldn't save me from a Wi-Fi scam so cleverly engineered that I spent $680 on internet service that barely functioned. And the worst part? Cunard knew their system was failing, blamed passengers for user error, and pocketed the money from repeated package purchases while offering zero accountability. This isn't a story about technology failing occasionally. This is about deliberate system design that forced passengers to buy the same service multiple times, while the company profited from our desperation to stay connected. I'd booked the Queen Mary II 7-day transatlantic crossing from Southampton to New York as a working vacation. As a senior accountant at an international firm, I had clients across multiple time zones who needed regular communication. I couldn't disappear for a week without internet access. The transatlantic crossing had always fascinated me. The romance of ocean travel, the history of the great liners. But I'd hesitated because of work obligations. When I discovered Cunard offered premium Wi-Fi packages that promised reliable connectivity, I finally decided to book it. The crossing departed Southampton on October 15th. Embarkation was elegant and formal, exactly what I'd expected from Cunard's reputation as the most traditional of cruise lines. The Queen Mary II was magnificent, a proper ocean liner built for transatlantic service rather than tropical cruising. Everything felt refined, expensive, and professional. That first evening, before we even left port, I went to the internet cafe on Deck 2 to purchase a Wi-Fi package. The pricing was displayed clearly on a board behind the desk. Basic package. $50 for 100 megabytes. Standard package, $100 for 250 megabytes. Premium unlimited package, $150 for unlimited data for the entire voyage. The choice was obvious. I needed unlimited access for 7 days of work emails, video calls with clients, and document uploads. $150 was expensive but reasonable for a week of unlimited connectivity. I provided my stateroom number, paid with my credit card, and received a login code and password. The premium package gives you unlimited data for the entire crossing. The internet desk attendant confirmed. You can connect up to 2 devices simultaneously. Just use these credentials on any device, and you'll have access throughout the voyage. I returned to my cabin and connected my laptop and phone. The initial connection was strong, faster than I'd expected for maritime satellite internet. I checked my emails, responded to several client messages, and felt relieved. This was going to work perfectly. For the first 6 hours, everything functioned well. I worked that evening, participated in a video call with a client in Singapore at midnight ship time, and felt confident I could maintain my work responsibilities while enjoying the crossing. Then, around 2 in the morning, my connection dropped. Both devices showed connected to the Wi-Fi network, but had no internet access. I tried disconnecting and reconnecting. No change. I restarted both devices. Still nothing. I went back to the internet cafe, which was closed at that hour. A sign indicated it would reopen at 8 in the morning. Frustrated but assuming this was a temporary glitch, I went to bed. When the cafe reopened, I was waiting outside. A different attendant, a young man in his 20s, was working. My Wi-Fi stopped working around 2 this morning. I have the premium unlimited package, but I can't connect. He typed my stateroom number into his computer. I see you purchased the package yesterday. Let me check the system. He clicked through several screens, frowning. It looks like your session expired. Expired? I bought the unlimited package for the entire crossing. Yes, but it appears the session timed out. This happens sometimes with the system. I'll need to reset your access. He typed for another minute. Okay, try connecting now. I pulled out my phone and attempted to connect. It worked immediately. Why did it time out if I purchased unlimited access for the week? He shrugged. Maritime satellite internet can be unstable. Sometimes sessions drop due to signal issues. As long as we reset it, you should be fine. I returned to my cabin, frustrated but relieved it was resolved. I worked through the morning, sent several emails, and prepared documents for an afternoon video call. Around 2 in the afternoon, exactly 6 hours after the reset, my connection dropped again. Same problem. Connected to Wi-Fi network, no internet access. Back at the internet cafe, the same attendant looked unsurprised when I explained the problem. Same issue. Session timed out. I'll reset it again. This is the second time in 12 hours. Why does an unlimited week-long package keep timing out every 6 hours? It's probably your device settings. Maritime internet requires specific configurations. You might have power-saving settings enabled that disconnect after periods of inactivity. I'm an accountant. I work with technology constantly. My devices are configured correctly. This is a problem with your system, not my settings. His expression became slightly defensive. I've reset your access. You should be fine now. If it happens again, make sure you're not letting your device go into sleep mode while connected. The second full night at sea brought another disconnection at 8 in the evening. 6 hours after the previous reset, like clockwork, I documented the exact time, screenshotted my device settings proving everything was configured correctly, and prepared for what I was beginning to realize was going to be a week-long battle. Wednesday morning arrived with yet another trip to the internet cafe. Reset number 4. I started asking other passengers in line if they were experiencing the same problems. Every single person nodded. An American businessman told me he'd been disconnected 5 times already. A German professor said she'd given up trying to work and was just checking emails once per morning during her reset window. It's maritime internet, she said with resignation. What can we expect? But I expected what I paid for. Unlimited connectivity for 7 days. Not 6-hour windows requiring manual resets. 72 hours into the voyage, I started keeping a detailed log. Time of each disconnection. Duration of each reset visit. Names of staff members. I was treating this like an audit because that's what it was becoming. And the pattern was damning. Every disconnection occurred almost exactly 6 hours after the previous reset. The precision was too perfect to be random technical failure. Thursday afternoon brought the 8th disconnection and my 8th visit to the internet cafe. While waiting in line, I overheard a conversation that made everything click into place. An elderly British woman was at the counter, her voice strained with stress. But I already paid for the week-long package. Why do I have to buy another one? The attendant, a woman in her 30s I hadn't seen before, responded with practiced patience. When the system times out, it requires a new purchase to reactivate. The previous package doesn't carry over. But I paid £150. That was supposed to last the entire crossing. I understand your frustration, but the package terms specify that session interruptions may require new purchases. It's in the terms and conditions you agreed to when you bought the package. My blood ran cold. They were telling passengers to buy new packages. I'd been getting free resets. But how many people were being charged repeatedly for the same service? After the British woman left, clearly having paid for a second package, I approached the counter. I just heard you tell that passenger she needed to buy a new package after a timeout. Why haven't I been charged for new packages every time you reset my access? The attendant looked uncomfortable. Well, system resets are complimentary if the issue is on our end. But sometimes the system can't determine if it's a technical issue or user error, and in those cases, a new purchase is required. How do you determine the difference? It's assessed on a case-by-case basis. So, arbitrarily, some passengers get free resets and others are told to buy new packages for the same problem. She didn't answer, just looked at me with an expression that suggested this conversation was above her authority level. I need to speak with your IT department or supervisor. I can have someone call your stateroom. No one ever called. Friday brought 3 more disconnections. Reset number 9 at 2 in the morning, reset number 10 at 8, reset number 11 at 2 in the afternoon, right in the middle of a crucial video call with a client in London. I was mid-presentation, sharing financial projections on screen, when everything froze. By the time I'd walked to the internet cafe, waited in line, gotten reset, returned to my cabin, and reconnected, 30 minutes had passed. My client was frustrated. I was humiliated. That evening, I went to guest services and demanded to speak with someone in management. After 20 minutes of waiting, I was escorted to an office where a man in his 40s introduced himself as the ship's IT manager. I laid out everything. The consistent 6-hour disconnections, the precision timing that proved this wasn't random failure, the practice of charging some passengers for new packages while giving others free resets, the complete failure of a service advertised as unlimited. He listened with an expression of professional concern that felt rehearsed. Mr. Berg, I apologize for the inconvenience. Maritime satellite internet is inherently unstable. We're in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, dealing with weather, distance from satellites, and technical limitations that don't exist on land. The fact that you're getting 6-hour sessions is actually quite good considering the circumstances. Then you shouldn't advertise unlimited week-long packages. You should advertise 6-hour sessions with required resets. The package is unlimited in data, not necessarily in session continuity. Those terms are specified in the purchase agreement. I never received a purchase agreement. I paid at the desk and received a login code. The terms are available on our website and displayed near the internet cafe. So buried in fine print that passengers don't see until after they've paid. And you're deliberately engineering a system that disconnects every 6 hours, forcing passengers to either spend time getting resets or pay for entirely new packages. How much additional revenue does Cunard make from passengers who don't realize resets are supposedly free? His expression hardened. That's a serious accusation. Our billing practices are transparent and fair. If you believe you were overcharged, I can review your account. I wasn't overcharged for packages. I was charged for a service that doesn't function as advertised. That's worse. He offered no solution, no refund, no accommodation. Just an apology for my inconvenience and assurance that they'd note my feedback. Saturday morning, as the Statue of Liberty came into view, and the Manhattan skyline grew larger on the horizon, I sat in my cabin calculating the actual cost of this nightmare. $150 for the initial package. But the time spent getting resets 28 times over 7 days represented approximately 10 hours of work time. At my hourly consulting rate, that was $530 in lost productivity. Combined with the initial cost, I'd effectively paid $680 for internet service that required constant manual intervention and failed during my most critical work moment. As passengers gathered on deck for our arrival in New York, taking photos and celebrating the completion of the crossing, I was documenting my final evidence. Timestamps of every disconnection, photos of error messages, names of every staff member I'd interacted with, a detailed calculation of financial impact. Disembarkation brought one last indignity. As I waited in line to leave the ship, I passed the internet cafe and saw a sign I'd never noticed before. Tucked in small print at the bottom of the pricing board. Session continuity not guaranteed. Resets may be required due to technical limitations of maritime connectivity. They knew. They'd always known. And they'd buried the warning where desperate passengers purchasing packages wouldn't see it until too late. 6 weeks after returning to Stockholm, I received Cunard's response to my formal complaint. They apologized for my less-than-optimal experience with their internet service. They explained that maritime connectivity faced unique challenges. They offered me a $100 onboard credit for a future cruise as compensation. $100 for $680 in actual costs, for a system they knew failed systematically every 6 hours, for a service they advertised as unlimited but designed to frustrate passengers into either accepting constant manual resets or buying multiple packages. I'll never sail with Cunard again, and I've warned every colleague who mentions transatlantic crossings about what I experienced. That beautiful, elegant, historically significant ship is running a Wi-Fi scam that exploits passengers who need connectivity for work. They charge premium prices for services they know will fail, then blame user error when passengers complain. $530 in lost productivity beyond the initial purchase. That's what their broken system cost me. And somewhere in Cunard's accounting department, I'm sure they track how many passengers purchase multiple packages per crossing, how much revenue they generate from a system designed to fail every 6 hours, and how few passengers actually complain loudly enough to get even token refunds. Numbers don't lie. That's what I've built my career on. And the numbers from my Queen Mary 2 crossing tell a clear story. Cunard is running a system that systematically fails, blaming passengers for issues they caused, and profiting from the desperation of people who need to stay connected. That's not technical limitations. That's fraud dressed up in elegant British tradition. And they're still doing it to every passenger who books that crossing, believing the promise of unlimited connectivity will actually mean what it says. My name is Araceli. I'm 31 years old, and I work as an ICU nurse at Massachusetts General Hospital in Boston. My husband D'Angelo is 33 and works in the emergency department at the same hospital. We understand stress, we understand crisis, and we understand when someone is lying to your face while pretending to help. After years of watching patients and families navigate insurance companies that change coverage terms after approvals, we thought we'd seen every variation of institutional dishonesty. But in April 2024, on what was supposed to be our delayed honeymoon cruise aboard Royal Caribbean's Oasis of the Seas, we discovered a scam so brazen it made insurance companies look honest. We pre-purchased deluxe beverage packages for $1,180, carefully reading every term to ensure we understood exactly what we were buying. 48 hours before sailing, Royal Caribbean changed the terms, excluded premium liquors we'd specifically planned to drink, and forced us to either pay $340 in unexpected supplements or accept inferior products for the entire week. This isn't a story about misunderstanding fine print. This is about a company that deliberately changed contract terms after purchase, trapped passengers who'd already committed, and profited from our inability to cancel without losing everything. D'Angelo and I got married in June 2023. But between our hospital schedules and a brutal winter flu season that had us both working double shifts for months, we couldn't take our honeymoon until nearly a year later. We'd saved carefully, planned meticulously, and chosen the Oasis of the Seas 7-night Eastern Caribbean cruise specifically because Royal Caribbean's deluxe beverage package seemed like the perfect fit for our vacation style. We booked in January 2024 for an April departure. The deluxe beverage package was prominently advertised on Royal Caribbean's website. Unlimited cocktails, premium spirits, wines, beers, and specialty beverages up to $15 per drink. $590 per person for week-long cruises. The description was detailed, listing specific premium brands included Grey Goose, Johnny Walker Black, Patron, Hendrick's Gin, and dozens of others. I screenshotted the entire page because we're both methodical about understanding what we're purchasing. The total for both packages came to $1,180, charged immediately to our credit card. It was expensive, but we'd done the math. If we each had 3 to 4 drinks per day at $15 each, we'd break even. Anything beyond that was bonus value. And after the year we'd had, working through COVID surges, staff shortages, and emotional exhaustion, we wanted to relax completely without worrying about drink costs. For 3 months, we looked forward to that cruise. We researched the ship's bars, planned which cocktails to try, and talked about finally having a week where our only responsibility was enjoying ourselves. 2 days before our scheduled departure, on April 18th, I received an email from Royal Caribbean. The subject line read, "Important update regarding your beverage package." My stomach immediately tightened. Nothing good ever starts with "important update." The email explained that Royal Caribbean had refined their deluxe beverage package terms. Effective immediately, premium spirits would require a $15 supplement per drink. The included spirits were now limited to select brands, defined as well and mid-tier options. A PDF attachment listed the new included brands: cheap vodka, bottom shelf whiskey, house tequila. Every premium brand we'd planned to drink, every brand specifically listed on the website when we purchased, was now excluded. I called D'Angelo at the hospital immediately. They changed the drink package terms 2 days before we leave. They can't do that. We already paid. The email says the changes are effective immediately and apply to all upcoming sailings. That evening, we both called Royal Caribbean customer service. After 40 minutes on hold, a representative confirmed what the email had stated. The terms had changed. Premium spirits now required supplements. But we purchased based on the original terms, D'Angelo said, his voice tight with controlled anger. The website specifically listed premium brands as included. We have screenshots. I understand your frustration, sir. However, the terms and conditions you agreed to at purchase state that Royal Caribbean reserves the right to modify package offerings at any time prior to sailing. We sail in 48 hours. We've already paid $1,180. What are our options? You can proceed with the modified package, or you can cancel for a full refund minus a processing fee. What's the processing fee? 25%. D'Angelo muted the phone and looked at me, his face showing the same outrage I felt. They want to keep $300 if we cancel. We were trapped. Cancel and lose $300 plus scramble to rebook a different cruise, or proceed with a package that was fundamentally different from what we'd purchased. What if we just cancel the drink package but keep the cruise? I asked when D'Angelo unmuted. Beverage packages purchased in advance are non-refundable within 96 hours of sailing. You're outside that window. Of course we were. They'd timed the terms change perfectly. Late enough that cancellation penalties applied, but early enough to claim they'd provided notice. We spent that night researching, reading Royal Caribbean forums, and discovering we weren't alone. Dozens of passengers on upcoming cruises had received identical emails. The forums were full of outrage, confusion, and people asking the same questions we were. Some passengers reported calling and getting different answers from different representatives. Some were told supplements would be $5. Others were told $10. We'd been told $15. The next morning, I called again and specifically asked about the legal basis for changing terms after purchase. The representative, a woman who sounded exhausted from clearly handling similar calls all day, gave me a response that sounded scripted. The terms and conditions include a clause allowing Royal Caribbean to modify offerings. While we understand this is frustrating, the changes apply uniformly to all guests. Can you send me the original terms and conditions from January when we purchased? I don't have access to archived terms, ma'am. The current terms are available on our website. Convenient. So you've changed the terms and removed evidence of what the original terms stated. She didn't respond to that. We boarded the Oasis of the Seas on April 20th, feeling angry but trapped. We'd already paid for everything, taken time off work that was nearly impossible to reschedule, and committed to this vacation. Backing out now meant losing thousands of dollars and having no honeymoon at all. The ship was magnificent, exactly as impressive as advertised. But when we went to the schooner bar that first evening to order drinks, the reality of the scam became crystal clear. 2 martinis, D'Angelo said. Grey Goose, dirty, extra olives. The bartender smiled professionally. Grey Goose requires a $15 supplement per drink with the deluxe package. Would you like to proceed with Grey Goose, or would you prefer Orloff vodka, which is included? What's Orloff? It's our included vodka option. D'Angelo and I looked at each other. We'd never heard of Orloff. We later learned it was bottom-shelf vodka that retailed for about $12 per bottle. "Let me see the included spirits list," I said. The bartender handed me a laminated card. Every included option was a brand I'd never seen in any bar or liquor store. The whiskey was something called Kentucky Reserve. The tequila was Agave Dreams. The gin was London Bridge. All house brands, probably made specifically for cruise lines, worth a fraction of what actual premium spirits cost. We'd paid $1,180 for access to cheap liquor, while the premium brands we'd specifically chosen the package for required additional payment. "2 Grey Goose martinis," D'Angelo said, his jaw tight. "We'll pay the supplement." $30 plus the package we'd already paid for 2 drinks. Over the next 7 days, we faced the same decision constantly. Pay supplements to drink what we'd been promised, or accept cheap substitutes that we'd never choose on land. We tried the included brands twice. Both times the drinks were harsh, poorly balanced, and clearly made from inferior products. We ended up paying supplements on dozens of drinks. Every evening cocktail, every afternoon by the pool. Each time felt like being robbed twice. Once for the package that didn't deliver what was promised, and again for the supplement to get what should have been included. Midway through the cruise, I went to guest services with our original screenshots from January, showing the terms at purchase. A supervisor, a man in his 40s who'd clearly had this conversation many times that week, looked at my evidence with practiced sympathy. "I can see the terms were different when you purchased. Unfortunately, the modifications were made company-wide and apply to all sailings. The supplement pricing is our way of still providing access to premium brands for guests who specifically want them. The supplement pricing is your way of charging us twice for the same product. We paid $1,180 based on specific terms that you changed after we couldn't get a refund. I understand your frustration. I can offer you a $100 onboard credit as a gesture of goodwill." $100. We'd already paid over $200 in supplements by that point, with 4 days left. That doesn't address the fundamental dishonesty of changing terms after purchase. I've noted your feedback for management review. Is there anything else I can help you with today? We took the $100 credit because we had no other option. By the end of the cruise, we'd paid $340 in supplements. Combined with the original package cost, we'd spent $1,520 on drinks. If we'd just paid per drink without any package, we'd have spent less. But the financial loss wasn't even the worst part. It was the constant reminder that we'd been scammed. Every drink order became a negotiation. Every bar visit included explaining to bartenders that yes, we had the deluxe package. But no, it didn't actually include what we wanted. Other passengers would overhear and look confused, and we'd have to explain the terms change. And they'd check their own packages and realize they were in the same trap. The final evening, sitting on our balcony watching the sunset over the Caribbean, D'Angelo said what we'd both been thinking all week. This was supposed to be our honeymoon, the trip we'd remember forever, and all I'm going to remember is feeling cheated every single day. We disembarked the next morning and immediately filed a formal complaint. We sent our original screenshots, receipts for every supplement charge, and a detailed timeline showing exactly when Royal Caribbean changed the terms relative to our cancellation window. 6 weeks later, we received a response. Royal Caribbean apologized for our disappointing experience. They explained that package terms occasionally require adjustments to ensure sustainability. They offered us a $200 future cruise credit. $200. for $340 in supplement charges, for a honeymoon that was tainted by constant reminders that we'd been deliberately misled, for purchasing something based on explicitly stated terms that were changed the moment we couldn't back out. We'll never cruise with Royal Caribbean again, and we've told everyone we know about what happened. The nurses we work with, our families, friends planning cruises. We show them the screenshots proving what was advertised versus what was delivered. We explain exactly how the timing was engineered to trap passengers after refund windows closed. $340 in unexpected charges. But the real cost was so much higher. Our delayed honeymoon, the vacation we'd planned for over a year, was ruined by a company that deliberately changed contract terms and trapped passengers who'd already committed. We spend our days at the hospital fighting for patients against insurance companies that use identical tactics, denying coverage after treatment, changing policy terms, and hiding behind fine print. We thought vacation would be different. We thought a premium cruise line would operate with more integrity. We were wrong. Royal Caribbean's drink package scam taught us that corporations will exploit any opportunity for profit, even if it means destroying experiences that customers saved months to afford. They knew exactly what they were doing when they sent those emails 48 hours before sailing. They knew passengers couldn't cancel. They knew we'd be forced to either accept inferior products or pay supplements. And they did it anyway, because the profit from trapped passengers exceeded the cost of angry complaints. That's what we learned on our honeymoon. Sometimes the people who hurt you most are the ones you trusted enough to let your guard down. And sometimes, no matter how carefully you read the terms, corporations will change them the moment you can't walk away. My name is Azaria. I'm 67 years old, and I spent 42 years working as a nurse in Tampa before retiring 3 years ago. My husband Adler passed away in 2022 after 50 years of marriage, and I've been learning to navigate life alone ever since. On a fixed income with Social Security and a modest pension, every dollar matters. I budget carefully, track expenses in a notebook I've kept for decades, and never spend money without understanding exactly where it's going. That's why what happened on my November 2023 Holland America cruise still makes me feel foolish and taken advantage of. I booked a 12-day Caribbean cruise with advertised gratuities of $14.50 per day. By the time I disembarked, I'd been charged $252 in gratuities instead of the $174 I'd budgeted for. And the worst part wasn't the $78 they took without proper notice. It was realizing that Holland America specifically targets passengers like me, older adults traveling alone on fixed incomes, knowing we're less likely to fight back or demand refunds. This is a story about how a company I trusted exploited my vulnerability and got away with it because I didn't know I could say no. I'd chosen Holland America specifically because of their reputation for serving older passengers. Their marketing emphasized comfort, traditional service, and treating guests with respect. After Adler died, I'd been hesitant to travel alone, but my daughter convinced me I deserved to do something for myself. The New Amsterdam 12-day Caribbean cruise departing from Fort Lauderdale seemed perfect. Not too long, not too expensive, and visiting islands I'd always wanted to see. I booked in August 2023 through Holland America's website. The pricing breakdown was clear. Cabin fare, port fees, taxes, and daily gratuities of $14.50 per person. For 12 days, that came to $174. I wrote it in my budget notebook, confirmed I could afford it along with the cabin fare, and completed the booking. The 3 months before departure, I looked forward to that cruise more than I'd anticipated anything since Adler passed. It represented independence, proving to myself I could still travel and enjoy life even though I was alone now. I researched excursions, packed carefully to avoid baggage fees, and arrived at the port on November 5th, feeling nervous but excited. Embarkation went smoothly. The ship was beautiful, elegant in a traditional way that felt comfortable rather than flashy. My cabin was small but well-appointed, and the crew seemed genuinely friendly. That first evening, I had dinner in the main dining room and was assigned to a table with 3 other solo travelers, all women around my age. We immediately connected, sharing stories about our lives and why we'd chosen to cruise alone. The second morning, I checked my onboard account at one of the guest services kiosks. I wanted to track spending from the start to ensure I stayed within budget. The account showed charges from the previous night: 2 glasses of wine at dinner, 1 specialty coffee, and something listed as daily service charges. Day 1, $18.50. I stared at that number. $18.50. The advertised rate had been $14.50. I must have misremembered or misread something during booking. At guest services, I waited in line behind several other passengers and finally reached the desk. A young woman with a Holland America name tag greeted me with a professional smile. I have a question about the daily service charges. I thought the rate was $14.50 per day, but I'm being charged $18.50. She typed on her computer. Let me pull up your reservation. Yes, the current daily service charge is $18.50 per guest. But when I booked in August, the website showed $14.50. The gratuity rates were increased effective September 1st. All bookings made after that date reflect the new rate. I booked in August, before September 1st. She clicked through more screens. Your sailing date is after the rate change implementation, so the new rate applies. Something about that explanation felt wrong. So, even though I booked under the old rate, you're charging me the new rate because my sailing date is later? That's correct. The rate applicable to your cruise is determined by your sailing date, not your booking date. That wasn't disclosed anywhere during the booking process. The terms and conditions note that rates are subject to change. The current rate for your sailing is $18.50, and that's what's been applied to your account. $4 more per day than I'd budgeted. For 12 days, that meant an extra $48. Not a huge amount, but on my fixed income, it mattered. And the principle bothered me more than the money. I'd booked under clearly stated terms, and they'd changed those terms without notice. Is there anything I can do about this? The service charges are automatically applied and distributed to crew members. If you'd like to adjust them, you can request removal at guest services and provide cash gratuities directly to staff. But the standard practice is the automatic daily charge. I left guest services feeling unsettled but unsure what to do. Removing the automatic gratuities and tipping in cash would require carrying significant amounts of money and tracking which crew members I'd already tipped. At my age, that seemed complicated and stressful. I decided to accept the $18.50 rate and adjust my other spending accordingly. For the first 4 days, I enjoyed the cruise despite the gratuity frustration. My dinner companions became friends. We explored ports together, shared excursions, and spent evenings at shows and in the ship's lounges. The crew was genuinely wonderful, and I understood gratuity supported their income. My issue wasn't with tipping. It was with the lack of transparency about rate changes. On the morning of the 5th day, while we were at sea between St. Lucia and Barbados, I checked my account again. The previous night's charges appeared normal, but there was a new line item. Service charge adjustment, days 512, Additional $2.50 per day. My hands started shaking as I read it. They were increasing the rate again? Mid-cruise. I went straight to guest services, where a different representative, an older man who reminded me of Adler, greeted me. I don't understand this charge. The service rate was already increased from what I was originally told, and now there's another increase? He looked at my account with an expression that suggested he'd been dealing with similar complaints all morning. Holland America implemented a service enhancement program effective this week. To ensure our crew members receive appropriate compensation, we've adjusted the daily service charge to $21 per guest for the remainder of the cruise. $21? That's $6.50 more than the rate I booked under, and $2.50 more than what I've been paying. The enhancement reflects increased service standards and ensures fair compensation for our crew in line with industry standards. Industry standards didn't change in the 5 days since I boarded. This is just raising prices mid-cruise when passengers can't do anything about it. His expression showed sympathy, but his words were firm. The adjustment applies to all guests currently sailing. It's not specific to your reservation. Can I opt out? You can remove the automatic gratuities and provide cash tips directly, but most guests find the automatic system more convenient. I felt tears starting and hated myself for it. I wasn't someone who cried in public, but the frustration and feeling of being exploited overwhelmed me. I'm on a fixed income. I budgeted carefully for this trip. You've now increased the gratuities by $78 total from what I was told when I booked. That might not seem like much to you, but it matters to me. He looked genuinely uncomfortable. I understand, and I apologize. Would you like to speak with a supervisor? A supervisor arrived 15 minutes later, a woman in her 50s with a manner that was professional but not particularly sympathetic. She explained the same things the representatives had already told me, using slightly different words, but arriving at the same conclusion. The rates had increased. The increases applied to all guests, and my only option was to remove automatic gratuities and tip in cash if I preferred. How much would cash tipping cost? I asked. She pulled out a printed guide. Holland America recommends $17 per day for cabin stewards, $6 per day for dining room servers, and $3 per day for assistant servers. For a 12-day cruise, that's approximately $312 total. More than the automatic gratuities I was already being charged. The system was designed so that even the alternative was more expensive. I returned to my cabin and calculated everything. Original budgeted gratuities at $14.50 per day, $174. Actual charges, $18.50 for 4 days, was $74, plus $21 for the remaining 8 days, was $168. Total, $242. Wait, that was only $68 more than budgeted, not $78. I checked my account statement more carefully. There was an additional $10 service charge processing fee I'd missed. So the actual total was $252, $78 more than the $174 I'd budgeted and been promised when I booked. That evening at dinner, I mentioned the gratuity increases to my table companions. Every one of them had the same experience. One woman, a retired teacher from Michigan, had been charged the $21 rate from the first day because she'd booked more recently. Another, a widow like me from Oregon, had experienced the exact same mid-cruise increase I had and felt equally frustrated and helpless. They do this because they know we won't fight back, the woman from Oregon said quietly. We're older. We're alone. We don't want to cause scenes. They're counting on us just accepting it. She was right, and I hated that she was right. The remaining 7 days of the cruise were tainted by that realization. Every interaction with crew members made me think about the gratuities I was being forced to pay beyond what I'd agreed to. The crew themselves were wonderful and didn't deserve my resentment. But I couldn't separate my frustration with Holland America from the people who worked for them. When I disembarked in Fort Lauderdale, I filed a written complaint at the terminal. The representative who took it gave me a reference number and said someone would follow up within 4 to 6 weeks. 8 weeks later, I received a form letter. Holland America apologized for any confusion regarding service charge rates. They explained that rates are adjusted periodically to ensure fair crew compensation in line with industry standards. They noted that rate change information is available on their website. They offered me a $50 onboard credit for a future cruise. $50. For $78 they'd taken beyond what I'd been promised. And they knew I'd probably never use that credit because I couldn't afford to book another cruise after this experience. I'm 67 years old. I worked for 42 years taking care of patients, many of whom couldn't afford their medical care and relied on us to be honest about costs. I raised 3 children on a nurse's salary, managed our household budget while Adler worked construction, and never spent money frivolously. When Adler died, I learned to manage finances completely on my own for the first time in 50 years. I track every dollar because I have to. $78 matters to me. It's a week of groceries. It's my monthly internet bill. It's money I could have used for Christmas gifts for my grandchildren. Holland America took it knowing I couldn't refuse, knowing I was trapped on a ship in the middle of the Caribbean with no ability to walk away, knowing that people like me, older and alone and careful with money, wouldn't fight back hard enough to matter. I'll never cruise again. Not with Holland America, not with anyone. And when my friends from church ask about my trip, I tell them the truth. The islands were beautiful. The crew was lovely. But the company exploited passengers systematically, changed prices after we'd committed, and counted on us being too polite or too tired to demand accountability. That's what I learned on my first solo trip after Adler died. Being alone makes you vulnerable to people who see vulnerability as an opportunity for profit. And sometimes, the companies that market themselves as caring about older passengers are the ones who exploit us most. If stories like Azaria's shock you, you're not alone. Cruise scams destroy thousands of vacations every year, costing passengers millions in unexpected charges and ruined experiences. Subscribe to Mr. Nightveil for more true stories that expose the tactics companies use to exploit travelers. Drop your location and the current time below, and stay vigilant out there.